Good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Shea. For one more day, I think it is, I'm the president of the National LTAP Association. All of us at NLTAPA want to welcome you to our 31st annual conference. That was exciting to see that number. And this is actually our second year of a joint partnership for our conference with our friends at the National Transportation Training Directors. We have 308 people registered for this conference, which is so exciting to us. It's an opportunity for some of our folks who would not normally get a chance to attend our national conference to be able to participate. And while we sure miss the opportunity to get our big hugs from our LTAP and NTTD friends, we're very pleased with the structure for the conference. I cannot thank the conference planning committee enough. Really, they have done extraordinary work during a very challenging time and have put together an agenda that we're all really excited about and looking forward to spending the time together. I want to offer our special thanks to Keith Knapp and to Matthew Enders, our chairs of this conference. I know they didn't think this was going to be their role as they headed into this, but and Keith is also transitioning to be our new president. So he has a few things on his plate. So welcome all, our special guests, our partners, our LTAP and TTAP staff, and our NTTD friends. Have a wonderful experience at the conference. And I'm very pleased to introduce you to Keith Knapp, the chair of the conference. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Donna. Welcome, everyone. And thanks, Donna, again, for the great welcome and all the work you've done over the past year. It's very much appreciated. So we actually have a bit of time this morning to talk about a number of things. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about the agenda, kind of how things are going to work, and just welcome everybody. It looks like we're at 168 people now, so that's great, and it keeps increasing. So just so I don't forget, Victoria mentioned, go into your Q&A panel and say hello to everybody so that we know you're there, and that gets that ball rolling. It's also where, again, you can ask questions and things like that to everybody. Right, Q&A. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting used to the lingo with the GoToWebinar. It's a bit different than the platform I use. So again, welcome everybody. Again, I also want to thank, besides Donna, all the people on the planning committee. We've been planning all year, and then 2-3 months ago, everything shifted to try to go virtual on this. We had to figure out what we were going to do and offer each day and not get too long. Each day will start at 10 a.m. Central, and I know we have people from all over the country, of course, coming on. The work groups, all the effort the work groups have put into it, along with Ohio LTAP and the fact that they've decided they could host this, and all the work. It's incredible the amount of work they did with all the different speakers we have, all the different practices that had to go on, including the one that happened this morning with everybody all over again. So just lots of stuff going on in the background to get this all together. We did pull it together pretty quickly, as I mentioned, and you're going to hear a lot of different speakers this morning. Again, we got some recordings. Carlos, I'll introduce him as our keynote. He pre-recorded something which I've seen and is absolutely incredible. Again, lots of great interactive sessions, lots of great subjects, sessions, state sharing. If you did not, so it's please find that question box and drop us a hi or hello if you haven't seen that yet, so that we can get that ball rolling on where people should put their questions and whatnot. During the breaks, I'll explain the breaks. We have some micro learnings. We have hot topics. You could send something right to Matt Enders right now, because I know he's somewhere in the list of what is now 190 people. So go ahead and communicate with him directly with hot topics. There's a 5-minute period, so we kind of keep things rolling as quickly as we can. A couple of different breaks in there where you can go off and do what you need to do, because again, for me, sitting more than an hour in front of a computer is about my limit. An hour, and then I've got to kind of move on from there. think that's about all I had to add. I know, again, we set a lot of time aside here for the beginning, and it's not a problem if we start early, so that's good. So day one, oops, are we seeing the day one agenda? Yes, okay, just a little bit of lag in what I was seeing. All right, so today we have the welcome as we're doing right now. We have Carlos Braceras, who is actually the executive director of the Utah DOT and chair of the TRB Executive Committee, who did a pre-recording on building community. Both him and the plenary tomorrow, and I'm excited about the plenary, Jonathan Fanning. Both are going to be talking about leadership and community and authentic leadership tomorrow, which again, I'm really excited about. Carlos has got this great presentation, so don't walk away. We then get into what we're calling stretch breaks and micro learning. Mike Fitch from Ohio LTAP has got a clip. He did some at the beginning. It'll be about the low volume roads conference, so you can come and go in that first few minutes. Then he's going to be talking about working with other generations. We'll have a bit of a break between that and the high friction surface treatment 5-minute clip before we jump over to Victoria Beal to do some state sharing on our UAS curriculum. After that, we get into session one, and you don't want to miss this. I got a little bit of a preview of this. If you didn't, also, I forgot to mention, for those of you that didn't participate, there have been several sessions that we've done already in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We did a LTAP U, and we did a train the trainer on pavement preservation, and we also did the interactive poster session last week. That was last week. Yeah, these days, thank you, David. These days and weeks, if they aren't for you, they're blending together for me, which is why I'll be on vacation next week. But session one at 11:15, these are Central Time, again, because it kind of just seemed like to make sense, because here I am, Iowa, the center, the heart of the United States. At 11:15, we get into session one, the escape posters. They're going to have interaction with that, with the Metameter and the questions and whatnot, along with then another break after that with Mike again, having a bit of discussion at the beginning where you can kind of go do what you need to do, and then also talking about developing emotional intelligence competencies. Sorry, my camera is here and my screen is there. Hot Topics follows that. Matt will do that. And then we get into session two before we wrap things up on asset management out of the innovations group with Tim Collins, Patrick Connor, and Ayrton Coles, and Matt Kate will be moderating that. So we've got a question here about not being able to see things in the chat. Is it a communication with the presenters only? My understanding is yes, that's right, Victoria, that the chat, so you got to use the Q&A panel. Is that correct?
Yes, they need to put questions in the question box, and then we will assign them over either to individuals who are presenting today or respond to them directly. And then if it's something that we feel is beneficial to the whole audience, we'll make that response available to everybody like we just did with the question that was asked. Otherwise, we'll just respond to that individual directly.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that we're all amongst friends, and we're going to see how this goes. There'll be a few glitches now and again as we learn the process and we get smoother at this whole passing things from one to the other within GoToWebinar. And we're definitely learning about, I hate to say it, learning about something we might use later down the road, but we will. We're learning a lot, and so let us know, again, if you can't see something, can't hear something, can't ask questions or whatever, let us all know about that. So you've heard about the breaks, kind of how the breaks are going to work today, and we'll kind of repeat that between each of the presentations. But I think unless, and then at the end of the day, I'll get into the agenda for the day two, and just kind of mention what it is we're going to do tomorrow. Other than that, Donna, Victoria, did I miss anything that we need to talk about?
No, I think you did great.
You have a question in the question box, Keith. They would like to know where you're going on vacation.
Okay, yeah, everything just went, oh, yeah, it collapsed on me. All my panels. There it is. Well, nothing exciting. As some of you know, and we can talk about that later, I barely made it out of Argentina in March. But I am going to central Wisconsin, and I'm staying in an Airbnb. I'm going to read books and whatnot and do what I need to do to refresh, and then maybe tool around Iowa here a bit over a few days. So like everybody else, tending to stay pretty local. I had this glimpse of going out to Montana and doing some mountain climbing, but yeah, beyond my capabilities right now. So Iowa, bike trails, things like that. So
Sounds wonderful.
yeah, it should be. It's yeah, I'm going to be staying in an old historic house, Airbnb. So without further ado, let's see, I need to uncollapse some of my things here. I want to introduce Carlos, and then Victoria will play his clip. I think do I need to stop sharing first, Victoria, for you to do that?
I'll start the clip as soon as you're done talking.
So I don't need to stop sharing.
I'll move it over to myself and then share the clip.
All right, perfect. Yeah, right. And sorry, go ahead, Donna. So there's also, again, handouts and things like that. Some of them were posted on the, I forgot about that. Let's not forget about Omid, who's done such a great job with the conference website and updating things as I crazily updated sometimes daily. So Carlos Braceras, PE, Executive Director of the Utah DOT. He was appointed to serve as the Utah DOT Executive Director on May 6, 2013. So he's been doing it for at least 7 years. The former UDOT Executive Director, John, I'm going to say Jord, appointed Braceras as Deputy Director in 2001. At that time, he was UDOT's Region 3 Director. He also worked on the Legacy Parkway I-15 North project, where he's responsible for the development of environmental documents, design build contracts, and construction of both facilities. In 1998, he was named State of Utah's Governor's Manager of the Year and received the UDOT Leader of the Year award. He's got a bachelor's degree from the University of Vermont and a bachelor's degree from University of Utah. He currently serves as the ESHO Design Subcommittee Chair of the Center for Environmental Excellence, Chair of the TRB Executive Committee, and then a whole series of other things that he's chairing and doing. We are so privileged to have Carlos even record something for us. He's a great speaker, great subject material, and I will pass it over to, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule by about 5 minutes, and that's great. It just gives us a little bit of breathing room as we go through the day. So let's play that great beam footage. Let's play Carlos's keynote.
Well, good morning. My name is Carlos Braceras, and I know we were all supposed to be in Seattle for this meeting, and we are obviously meeting under different circumstances. So I really do. I want to start off by saying how much I appreciate the National Association of Technical Assistance Program inviting me here to be the keynote speaker. Unfortunately, I'm not in Seattle. I'm here at the headquarters of the Utah Department of Transportation. But it is an honor for me to be speaking with so many professionals like you who are making a difference in your organizations and your communities every single day. You know, when I think about what is our most important resource in business today, and you hear this over and over again, but it is absolutely true. It's the people. Some may assume money, technology, or equipment, kind of this stuff that's out there. But without the people, none of that means anything. You are what create the communities that we want to live in. The people are who create the communities that we want to live in. And our success is dependent on the work each of us does every single day. Now, as transportation professionals, you play an incredibly, undeniably important role. You're making sure that our greatest asset, our people, have everything they need to thrive and be successful. And we need you now more than ever before. You guys all know transportation, it's moving fast. The amount of change in my career has been absolutely astounding. I couldn't even have dreamed of things like big data or machine learning or a connected autonomous vehicle. I mean, what was that stuff? They're just changing the landscape of our industry, and they're changing the jobs that our people need to perform every single day. As a society, the expectations of a DOT are changing as well. I know, I'm sure you think I'm young, but long before smartphones and Facebook, there was a time when DOTs used to think that our role was solely to build roads and bridges. We didn't realize the impacts our projects had on the communities in which we live. So 20 years ago, in this United States, as DOTs, we got together and we asked ourselves, how can we broaden the understanding of the work that we do? And we soon realized that our job was more than just maintenance, design, planning, operations of our transportation systems. We realized our public expected so much more of us. And so we introduced this idea of what we called context-sensitive solutions, or CSS. And we based this on really 3 different pillars, where we said, yes, of course, we're going to meet that transportation need, as we always have done, but we're going to look for opportunities to improve the environment and improve our communities. It opened up a whole new world for us and invited us into a discussion about what we wanted our future communities to look like. A few years ago, I was giving my annual talk at the UDOT conference. And I asked the audience, I think they were surprised, but I asked them, what is the community of your dreams look like? What are the attributes in that community? And what words come to your mind when you think about that community of your dreams? Now think about that for a moment. Do your communities of your dream have things such as good health, safe neighborhoods, clean environments, good walking and biking trails, access to education and great jobs? I want you to think about your communities, your dreams, where your family lives, because they are very high value to all of us. And they are the things that we believe are worth working for. Now, how do we as individuals in our daily jobs achieve something so ambitious with so much change and technological disruption that's going on in our worlds? It's easy to get lost in the noise or become overwhelmed in the situation. Sometimes we could feel defeated, or we could fall behind in what we're trying to do, and we really lose sight of that vision or that purpose. But we must keep our eyes on the prize, this building of our community of our dreams. And we can achieve these dreams by viewing our work as what we call the just cause of transportation. Now, I recently finished reading a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And he talks about how our lives and our organization should be driven by a just cause. He describes the just cause as an ideal vision of the future that inspires us to work beyond any particular win. It channels our effort and ignites our passion. Our just cause is visionary, it's inclusive, and it stands the test of time. It serves as a reminder that we're all in this together, and that each of us has an important role to play in achieving this just cause. Sinek says there's 5 criteria to a just cause. Number 1, it champions what we stand for, which in our case is creating a community of our dreams. Think about what you stand for, individually and as an organization. Number 2, our cause is inclusive. Transportation affects everyone. It takes a collaborative effort from agencies at all levels, both private industry, partners, and the public coming together to build this community of our dreams. Transportation truly unifies all of us. Number 3, it benefits ourselves and each other. Transportation is critical in our quality of life. It fosters economic development, and it connects us to what matters most, whether it be to the job opportunities, to recreation, to our families, and to our friends. Number 4, our cause is resilient. It's a cause so great that it can handle disruption and change. Now, transportation has certainly seen a lot of changes over time. From our days of using horse and buggy, no, not me using horse and buggy, I'm not that old, to the emerging world of the connected autonomous vehicles. But one thing has remained. People will always need to get from point A to point B safely and efficiently. Number 5, it's idealistic. It's something noble that we're willing to devote our lives to. What we do in transportation matters to every single person in our lives, in our community, and in this nation. Now, I believe our just cause of transportation meets all of this criteria. Now, I see it every single day. People saving lives on our roadways, to making sure our employees at all levels and all backgrounds have the best training and resources to do their job. Crews delivering critical maintenance projects, large construction projects that improve access to opportunities, connect us to what matters most. Or visionary transportation planning, where all those who are interested in the health and well-being of our communities are welcome to the table and are listened to. All of these actions are done with values that we share. Inclusivity, trust, public responsiveness, passion, and dedication. These values are important to how we do our jobs and to how we create the community of our dreams. Now, American entrepreneur Mark Benoff, you may have heard of this gentleman of Salesforce. He said this best, I think. No matter what business you're in, values are the bedrock of a resilient company culture, and it inspires all employees at all levels to do the best work of their lives. When things get hard and we're faced with disruption, it's our values that will carry us through. I ask every employee at our Department of Transportation to understand our UDOT values and to think about their values, their personal values. What do you stand for as a person? And if you live by your values, I will always have your back. Now, these values are what help you build a culture that fosters trust, teamwork, and collaboration. Where did those words come from? Those were the 3 words that our employees in Utah themselves identified as elements of the UDOT culture. It allows us to build a culture of innovation. It's a culture that's devoted to asking, how do we make things better than before? A culture that embraces new ideas and takes risks in order to move the just cause forward, to allow us to create that community of our dreams. A culture where every employee knows that if they try to do the right thing and it doesn't work out, leadership will always have their back. Now, I think we all know that we will not be successful doing the same things we're doing today and be successful tomorrow. That's why it's incumbent on us to being an innovative organization, to finding ways to do things safer, with higher quality, with less impact to the public and to the environment. Those are the reasons we need to be innovative. It's also exciting to work in an organization that's innovative for your employees. We're a public agency, as are most of you. And we don't have competition. You don't constantly have that drive to be innovative because you don't have people biting at your butt to make you get better because they're trying to get a profit or try to sell a market, just go to the market with a product that you have. So that means we have to keep pushing ourselves. And to do that, we need to make sure that within our organizations, everyone has a commitment to lifelong learning. I jokingly tell our people that you can't go home at the end of the day until you learn at least one new thing. Now, sometimes when people are walking out with me at the end of the day and they find themselves and I'm asking them how their day was and they know they're going to get the question, well, what was it you learned today, Winston? I've only once in my over 34 years had one employee turn around and walk back into the building because they must not have learned anything that day. But if you're not, it's not only to be successful at your job, this idea of lifelong learning, it's to be successful at life. We're building a lifelong organization. Our supervisors, managers, employees at all different levels of our department with all different perspectives. And it isn't always our instinct to try something new, is it? Really, not at all. It's usually our instinct to try to do things the way we've always done them. It's our instinct to play it safe as an organization. You know what? If we do things the way we've always done them and something doesn't work out, what can we say? Well, I've done it the way we've always done it. I don't know why it didn't work. And the reason we get like that as an organization, and sometimes people use the word bureaucratic organization in a negative tone because of that, is because of how we treat people. I like to say we treat public employees like puppies. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. I have a dog. His name is Yeti. This picture is when he was a bit younger. He's 3 years older than that right now. But think about when you're training a puppy. When you hit a puppy on the nose with a newspaper, you train them not to do that action. Now, you really don't hit a puppy, right? It might be a little bop on the nose. And you're not trying to hurt it. You're just trying to let it know not to do that again. The problem is the puppy really doesn't understand why they got the bop on the nose. And so what do? They pull back, they cower, at least for a while. Now, when an employee makes a mistake, what do? Do you hit them on the nose with a newspaper? Not literally, of course, I understand that. Even if you think you aren't being hurtful, do you see them withdraw? Do they understand what went wrong? Do you think that employee is walking away feeling confident to try something new or different in the future? The way a leader in an organization reacts to mistakes is critical to creating a culture of innovation. Mistakes are unavoidable. They're a necessary step towards success. Now, I understand that embracing failure is easier said than done. What's the natural tendency when you make a mistake? Say, when you trip, what's the first thing you think of? Dang, I hope nobody saw me. I'm kind of clumsy. I hope nobody saw that. We need to think on how to retrain ourselves. The worst mistake you can make is one that isn't shared. We need to create an environment where people are not afraid when to say I tripped or made a mistake. We need to create a culture where people trust that their leaders, their coworkers will have their back when something doesn't go as planned. We lean into the upsides of mistakes rather than avoid them altogether. In other words, what are we doing? We're creating a learning culture. And I know the word culture sometimes becomes a buzzword. It might be overused. But that's probably because it's so important. It's important to the success of an organization, so we have to talk about it. Now, Peter Drucker, famous business icon, said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. What does that mean? Obviously, strategy is important. When you're trying to solve a problem, we have to consider risks. We have to plan on how to prevent those risks. We have to address those important things. Don't get me wrong, strategy is never going anywhere. But when you're facing a tough dilemma that you could not have anticipated, because you always will, your culture and values will guide you through decision making when your strategy isn't enough. I can't say this more strongly. You need to know your values and your culture, and you need to go back to them when it hits the fan. It's critical. Let me share a little bit about the UDOT culture. 2017, we did some internal employee research. We learned that 87% of our employees feel proud to work at UDOT. I think that's absolutely outstanding. Having an organization when your employees are proud of where they work, are willing to wear the UDOT hat after work when they walk into the convenience store and proudly state, I work for the Utah Department of Transportation, we're in a good place. We followed that research up with focus groups to better understand where that really came from, what that pride was coming from. And our approach was to build a conversation on what was already good that was happening at UW. What made it special? What have been your best experiences? What do you want more of? And we found that our employees didn't often use the word culture, but what they mentioned over and over again were 3 words: trust, teamwork, and flexibility. They are critical to creating that environment of innovation for us. I want to talk about each one of those for a minute and share why I believe they're so important. Now, trust. Trust is our currency with our legislature, with our public, and with our employees. As a public agency, I submit that to each and every one of you, trust is your currency as well. In Stephen Covey's book, great Utah, called The Speed of Trust, he spoke about how an organization can get to decisions, even complicated negotiations where there's conflict, if there's trust between those 2 different organizations. So sometimes we jump into trying to solve a problem between 2 organizations or people, and if you haven't built a culture of trust, an organization where you have that trust, you're not going to get to an end point on that. Think about the projects you've worked on and how different they've felt and worked when there was trust. It was fun to work in that environment. Our employees want to be trusted by leadership and by their teammates. And they want to be able to trust the department's leadership as well. So when leadership says something, they want to know it's the truth. Innovation only happens in an environment of trust. Teamwork. We've heard so many versions of the same idea. Now, our employees love to work in teams. They love to solve problems together. And in reality, I know we all do. It's an incredible motivator. And when it gets right down to it, teamwork is what makes humans exceptional. The ability to communicate, to drive, to solve problems, to innovate together has gotten us where we are today. From learning to make fire to sending men to the moon, humans have achieved great things by sharing ideas, communicating to make them better, and working together. Flexibility. Now, this manifests itself in several different ways. At a personal level, we are flexible with schedules. There's flexibility in how, where, and when the work gets done. And the work doesn't come at the expense of personal and family values. The work doesn't come at the expense of personal and family values. That's so important. For our employees, this also means that we provide flexibility in their career opportunities. We encourage them to pursue learning in new and different areas, even if it doesn't pertain to the work they're doing with us today. Not only does that make them happier and more engaged at a time when our industry and technology are advancing so quickly, but it's a benefit to our business to have our employees that they're learning and that they're interested. And we have flexibility in how they solve problems and implement ideas. Think about this, it's a basic leadership tenet. A leader defines the what. What is the vision? What is the outcome that we're looking for? And our teams determine the how. When they get to determine the how, they own it. They have fun with it. Once the vision is set, let the people who do the work be the ones to create the plan. Empower them. Let them create the strategies, the objectives, and the measures. How will you know that you're successful moving in the right direction? Well, that's where measures come in, right? That's where outcomes come in. And the best way to get better at something fast is through frequent feedback. Measures can provide that feedback. Sometimes it's measures, sometimes it's a leader having conversations with the employee. But that frequent feedback is critical. A study showed that elite archers who received real-time biometric feedback, they increased their performance significantly in just 3 different sessions. It's incredibly powerful. When we use feedback, even if it tells us our performance wasn't on target, we can learn fast on how to hit the bullseye. Now that's why culture and trust are essential to continuous improvement. And the reality is sometimes we're not going to hit the target. When performance doesn't meet desired outcomes, leaders need to approach the situation with positive assumptions. Assume the best. We too often find ourselves assuming the worst in people. Assume the best. Believe in your people. Trust that your teammates are smart and competent, that there was no malicious intent. Believe that they want to succeed. They will find a way if you let them. Sometimes you even have to let them try again and encourage them to try again. They want to do great things. They will inspire you with what they can do. Let me share an inspiring story of one of our employees who absolutely went above and beyond to find innovations across our organization. Now, in our maintenance areas, I think a lot of people and a lot of our employees themselves don't think of themselves as innovative. So it was important for one of our employees, Ryan Bailey, to demonstrate how innovative they are, because building confidence in people is so important. So Ryan has this title, I didn't even know we had it. It's Innovation Manager at the Department of Transportation. He did something I don't think anyone has ever done before in a 3-week period in Utah. In that period of time, Ryan visited every single maintenance shed in the state. Now, we have over 88 maintenance stations. He went from north to south, east to west, driving across the entire state. We're a pretty big state. We have very much an urban area, but we have a lot of rural area as well. It's over 85,000 square miles. And you could drive for hours and you cannot see a single person. Now, when Ryan went and visited each shed, he invariably heard them say, well, gee, we're not really innovative around here. We're just not very creative. We're just doing our work. And Ryan would take the time and he'd start to ask them questions. Well, what are you working on? Or what's this over here? And he'd find all kinds of tweaks and adjustments that they had made, innovations, adaptations to help them do their jobs better. From things, different brackets on the Mack truck hoods, to weed spraying tools to get around concrete barriers, to delineator pullers, to plow wing holders. By the time he had visited every shed, he'd seen over 300 different innovations that our own crews had designed and built to help them do their jobs better, safer, or more efficiently. Now, as the innovation manager, Ryan had been tracking ideas across the entire department. Today, there's been over 500 different ideas submitted, and more than half of them have been implemented and shared throughout the organization. And it's had incredible benefit. It saved our organization millions of dollars and over 32,000 hours of employee hours of work. But more importantly, these small actions and sharing them within our organization is making us better than we were before. The lesson here is it's not good enough to have a good idea. It's not enough to share it with one person. Find your allies. Share lessons, share ideas across the entire organization and with other organizations. In fact, isn't that what you're here today to do? So make sure that you share your experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, because everyone will learn from them. Now, you're here as an association of people who help train others. But your mission is so much more. You're training people who are building the communities of our dreams. You're training people who are going to make a difference in every single person's life in this country. So what is your dream as an association? A community of learners and teachers. Don't sell yourself short when you dream of what you can achieve. Too often we overestimate the difficulty of perceived obstacles, and we underestimate how much power we actually have to affect change. When you have your dream in mind, instead of asking, what will stop me from getting there? Ask a better question. Start with the good that we can build upon. What do I want to see in my dreams? What's it going to take to get there? And who should be included in the conversation? I was asked to focus my talk on resilience, and you haven't heard that word mentioned very often, have you? But what I've been talking about is the elements that are necessary to build a resilient organization. Whether that be an association, an individual department, or an agency. Let's stick to some basics. Identify your dream. Make it a big dream. Create an organization of trust and values, and talk about those values all the time. And prepare to embrace setbacks challenges, and yes, failures that you will certainly face. Because when you work on something hard, you will fail. Now, I've said this a lot. The only people who don't fail are people that do nothing. I actually once said in a job interview, I was asked the simplest question that we should all be ready for. You know this question. What is your greatest skill? And I responded back, well, I can make more mistakes faster than anyone else. And I was like, did I just say that? And then I quickly added, but I won't make the same mistake twice. I think that's important. I'd like to end this talk with this thought from Teddy Roosevelt. The credit belongs to the person who is in their arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Thank you very much for allowing me to spend some time with you here today. I wish you best in your virtual conference, and I hope to meet you all in person one day. Thank you very much.
Okay. Wow. I'm realizing now we need some background audience clapping, right? I don't know how you do clapping virtually, but we need to get a clip. I think Carlos is a great speaker. I hope everybody else did. Dare greatly, right? When things get hard, when stuff hits the fan, lean on values and trust. Talked about innovation and hard times and resilience, and I think we're all there. And yeah, lots of great stuff about, again, purpose, vision, values, and why we do what we do. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. Again, if you have any questions, please type them into the question pod. It's a little unusual. We've got a couple additional URLs, but we're again so privileged to actually. I can't thank the Utah DOT people, Carlos, Jessica. There were several other people involved in just putting that video together and getting it to us a week ago already. So we've got a couple URLs after this and some break time. So what we're going to be doing now is we'll play Mike Fitch's URL from the Ohio LTAP. There's a bit on the low volume roads conference, just kind of a photo montage, and then he's going to be talking about working with other generations. We'll take a 5-minute break, come back and watch the video on high friction surface treatments before we get into the live version of today, which will be most of the rest of the week with the conference. So again, let's play Mike's URL now, unless people have questions. Here it comes. Thanks.
generation session. We're glad to have you here. So why do we talk about generational issues, and we have a great interest here today? Well, we know that generational differences can influence our work habits, our values, our motivational factors, our communication styles. So for about the past 15 years, we've had a really unique scenario in the modern workplace, which is having up to 4 distinct generations working side by side. Those are the traditionalists, the baby boomers, Generation X, and the millennials. Okay. Go millennials. And each generation grew up during their formative years with very different primary communication styles. So for example, the traditionalists might say, hey, I'm going to send you a written letter or a typewritten memorandum. The baby boomers would say, just call me on the phone or let's schedule a meeting. Or better yet, let's schedule 3 meetings, because boomers like meetings. So very different approaches. Here we have the generations defined based on ranges of birth years, and just realize these are approximate ranges, but generally speaking, traditionalists were born between 1925 and 1945, baby boomers between 1946 and 64, Gen X between 1965 and 81, millennials between 1982 and 1999, and now we have a 5th generation entering the workplace, that's Generation Z, also called the next gen, or post-millennials, or the I generation, or Gen 2020. So Gen Z is from 2001. So here's our first interactive exercise for the session. By a show of hands, do we have any millennials? Wow. Oh, good Lord. Welcome. Welcome to Untitled. Okay. Gen X, my generation. Okay. All right. Baby boomers. Very good. And how about traditionalists? Awesome. We have found our wise elder. Round of applause. Thank you, sir, and thank you for being here. All right. So what we try to do is try to bridge or narrow any generation gaps, not just among our coworkers, but also with our customers, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our communities. So next interactive item, we've all heard the term generation gap. What does that mean? Just call out.
Communication styles.
Communication styles. Okay, good. What else? Experience. Different experiences, life experiences. Okay, good. Anything else?
Values.
Values, sure.
Dress.
Dress, attire, okay. Formal versus informal.
Technology.
Technology.
Work ethic.
Work ethic, okay. Well, let's look at a short video on generational gaps.
Did I get the job?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because you're a baby boomer and I am a millennial.
Well, Melody, I am overqualified for this job.
I don't know where you got this. We don't do paper applications.
I made it. I don't do the internet.
That is the 3rd time you have said that this interview, and it also says so on this homemade job application.
There you go, champ.
I don't know what this is for.
Don't you need a trophy anytime you... anything?
Oh, it's on. How'd you get here? Horse?
I drove my car. I own it. After 8 more payments. How'd you get here?
I took an Uber.
Do not know what that is. This is the only way you'll ever own a house.
Learning how to text is the only way you'll ever communicate with your son. So...
Alright guys, who took my Sheryl Crow album?
Gen X. You know what? You're hired.
I quit.
Dad!
All right. That's a good one, right? So a general definition of generations, group defined by common values, attitudes, and ambitions, a group generally programmed at the same time by shared experiences and whose preferences and beliefs and work ethics have been influenced by the same historical and cultural and economic realities. Through our LTAP Center, we actually do a 2-hour class on working with other generations, and in the full session, we would work in groups. We'd have easels around the rooms, and we would have people writing out for these decades from the 1930s to the 2000s, what were the dominant historical, cultural, and technological changes that were occurring, and you really get to understand why each generation tends to be influenced the way they are. Looking to the future, by 2025, the projections are that millennials and maybe some of the post-millennials will occupy about 75% of the workforce, which is why today's session is really timely on looking ahead to helping the future generations. As I wrap up my portion, let me just mention the term reverse mentoring. We're all familiar with the concept of mentoring, which traditionally you had the older experienced employee who was coaching the younger new hire about how things work. But now instead of a one-way street of mentoring, it's more of a two-way street where we realize the younger employees have fantastic tech skills that the older folks just did not grow up with. So it's more of a reciprocal learning experience. Any quick questions? Thank you so much.
Okay, I think that's it. Yes. Sorry. My microphone is not by my mouth. All right, thank you. I wanted to thank Veronica Ramirez from the Alabama LTAP for sending in the high friction, and thank Mike Fitch for the presentation on generational communication. And next up is actually, Victoria Beal is going to be talking about UAS. So let me stop sharing. Victoria, you're up.
Thanks, Keith. I'm just switching it back over to myself real quick here. All right. Well, just wanted to give everyone an update on the training curriculum that we discussed at last year's annual conference. So this is our state sharing. Last year at the conference, we were just at the beginning part of developing coming up with a process and a curriculum based on the information that we had learned about UAS. And we saw from the information we gathered that there's really 5 different courses that we'd identified that are going to be part of our UAS training curriculum. We saw that a need for an awareness level so people could understand what they were getting themselves into, because this is so much more than just being a hobbyist and flying your drone around the yard or in a park. A pilot licensing level, which is really critical because there is a lot of information. It's not difficult information, but a lot of information that you need to understand before you take the UAS pilot licensing exam. And then from there, we saw the need for UAS team training or facilitation training, because when you do a UAS operations on the professional level, you need to really have a team of individuals who are doing this. While they're all licensed, they all fill different roles, and then they could be trained to move around within those roles on the team. And from there, we saw the need for type of use training, more in-depth specific about, what types of uses that the UAS can be utilized in transportation, and then equipment selection. There's a lot of equipment out there, a lot of different types of UAS, and depending really on the type of use you're going to need the equipment for is the type of equipment that you're going to utilize. I'm happy to report that we were able in the last 12 months to have developed the awareness level training and the pilot licensing level training. And I wanted to share with you what we now have available and that we are happy to share that out. We do have it on our e-learning system because they are e-learning courses. We're struggling with the next level because we really feel it needs to be in-person training. And obviously that's not something that is easily accomplished at this point in our history. But at a minimum, you could at least get them up and running with the awareness level and then the pilot licensing. And because it was all paid for with federal funds, as a lot of our training is, there is no charge for anyone to get in here and take the training. And I'll discuss that a little later in the update. The first course that was developed was the awareness course. And in that course, individuals learn what are UAS and who is using them. And when we say who is using them, we mean within the context of transportation. This is focused on state DOTs, local agencies, really those individuals who are working on building and maintaining the roadway system. It touches briefly on the UAS regulations, doesn't go into a whole lot of depth there, but just enough to whet their appetite and let them know that there's rules that have to be followed, and does a brief discussion about the licensing that's required. And then we do have a course review and a knowledge check that's ungraded. And then from there, if they are interested, they would move over into the remote pilot certification course, and it really covers all the operational knowledge. This course is actually 4 different modules, and the first one is an in-depth dive into the FAA regulations governing the UAS operations, and these are critical because this is the foundation upon which you have to operate when you're in the field. And then it also delves into, in Module 2, aviation fundamentals. And here you learn all kind of great information about class airspace and what needs to happen when you want to do operations and who you have to get clearance from and how you go about doing that. With Module 3 UAS operations, they delve into doing an operation from beginning to end, and have the whole flight plan that has to be developed, and how your team would interact. And then on Module 4, we really get into what other remote pilot resources are available. And we have these available on our e-learning system. There's been a tremendous interest, even here in Ohio, from our own UAS center. We have a UAS center that's part of the DOT, and since they can't do training in person right now, they are actually recommending these modules that have been published as the beginning point for individuals to learn about and start the licensing process who would like to join the UAS team. A few of the resources that are shared in just the first module of this second course. We make certain that people have a link to the Code of Federal Regulations, the section governing UAS, and then there's other information that's very valuable that's out there. The National Conference on State Legislatures, they did a snapshot of the state landscape of the laws. And this is really, if you look at the dates, those aren't old dates, guys. It's 2013 to 2019. This is very new. So we're able to give them, references and resources over even National League of Cities, as far as what cities should consider and know about the drone usage. Our audience for the courses, transportation professionals at all levels of government. And then also the consultants are incredibly interested in this training. Construction companies that are doing the roadway construction are very interested as well. And this also helps with preparation for those who are entering the transportation field. Someone as young as 16 can get a UAS pilot's license. And that was one of the things that we really honed in on, when we sold getting this funded. And I'll talk to you about the key factors and the creation, the funding came from actually our DOT's Disadvantaged Business Enterprises Supportive Services Program, because of the fact that, you know, someone as young as 16 can take this training and go get a UAS pilot's license and hopefully pique their interest into going into the transportation field as a UAS pilot and being a part of hopefully a future civil engineering track. So our supportive services program has been a fantastic partner all throughout this. And, you know, not only are they able to use it with the program they're providing, but we're able to use it for the locals. And now even our UAS Center, who actually was part of our technical advisory committee on the course development. They're utilizing as well. And then, you know, this is one course that we actually went outside and hired a consultant to do, because we just didn't have the internal knowledge to handle this course. But we were fortunate enough to be able to select a consultant, had a well-structured team. They had UAS knowledge as a part of their team. And this wasn't just their firm. They really put together a great group of different firms. They had good training development knowledge. And then they also had excellent graphics design, which you'll see when you get into the courses that really keep them interesting. So future plans, you know, just like the little seeds that are planted in the spring, we do have future plans, and we're kind of waiting to see, you know, what the next few months and this year and next year bring. But we do eventually intend to get to that UAS team training and those other 2 levels that I shared with you last year and have shared with you again this year. So I'm going to wrap things up by revisiting something that kind of off topic, but many years ago, my colleague in that state up north talked about how people in Ohio don't ever go into Michigan because of this whole little skirmish over who was going to get Toledo, apparently back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, because at the regional meeting I was at, I was showing pictures of everybody doing the OHIO, you know, this thing that we do when we go other places to show that we're from Ohio. And I had picked, unfortunately, a picture of somebody doing it in front of the sign leading into Michigan. He said, well, people are scared to come into Michigan because we'd had this whole war over Toledo. And I just wanted to reassure him that there is no longer a fear of that. And actually, we went and visited his facility when he wasn't there last week, but we got a great OHIO picture right there in front of the hall where Michigan LTAP is located. So rest assured, Tim, no fears of Ohioans going into Michigan any longer, and we celebrated right there in front of your sign. And my son refused to wear his mask at that point because he wanted to make sure you saw the big smile on his face as he rounded out the O on the end of Ohio. So, all right, any questions? Thanks for humoring me, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, and thanks for all your help today and for the state sharing. We've got a couple more coming. One more tomorrow, and the one on Thursday from David Orr and Dale Hagelin. All right. So again, if you got questions, go into the question pod. Absolutely, let everybody know. And yes, I lived in Detroit for a short period of time, or near Detroit, and know exactly what she's talking about with the border war. Up next, session 1, you can't escape the posters. Olivia from Louisiana, Marilee from New Hampshire, and Megan from Nebraska. I'm looking forward to this presentation, or this session, I should say, because we had the poster session last week, and this, I can tell how interactive this one's going to be too. So y'all are up.
Excellent. Let me just get up my slide deck here. Fantastic. And Olivia and Megan are here as well. And this is Marilee, and I'm going to kind of kick us off, but we're really excited to be sharing this. First, thank you to everybody who submitted a poster to the poster session, but also joined us for the poster session. And this discussion today is really centered around how we can use our training content, whether it's a poster session or many other things, in a new way to gamify and have some fun with learning. So Olivia and Megan are hanging out for some additional topic discussion on that, and we're just going to start by sharing a little bit about what gamification is. Thank you to my colleague and team member Rachel Barbieri, who helped pull this together, this presentation. And hopefully, I should check my audience view. You are seeing the slide deck. Awesome, you are. Gamification is defined by elearningindustries.com as an amalgamation of principles along with key gaming elements to deliver the requisite learning objectives. A simpler way of saying that is applying typical game elements, like points, scoring, friendly competition, challenges and level achievements to other areas such as our training content. A really simplified way of thinking of gamification is transforming otherwise boring or unengaging content to be fun. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we can take some of those topics that maybe we have to retrain on, or it's just the information that isn't as exciting as other topics we train, and bring a little fun and gamification to it. Why do we want to do that? More and more there's information that supports that gamification and bringing fun into training improves learning. It encourages teamwork. It can certainly help break the ice. We all know that. Creates engagement and interests. It makes learning fun. And it also allows us to make concepts easier to remember. So that's a big reason to think about how can we get our audience really engaged so that they're going to be able to upskill easier or recall the information that they've trained on easier. So there's some great reasons to think about how to gamify what we're doing. If you take a look at Scientific American magazine's motivating elements for learners, the three most critical ones they mention are autonomy, value, and competence. And we can put these into the framework of gamification when we think about a learner wants that autonomy to feel like they're in charge. And if they're playing a game, they might stick towards that goal longer because they're a player in it and they want to move ahead to that next level. And that's also the value. You're motivated and you're participating towards an end goal and something that you're excited about and you're enjoying. And kind of like when you're practicing, practice makes perfect. The better you get at something like a game, the more motivated you are to move ahead and to finish that game. So gamification can help us touch on those motivating elements to get our learners engaged. That said, gamification does not equal competition exactly. It really does give us the chance to tap into that competitive streak that we might all have. You think about a time that you've played a board game with a family member or friends and you get engaged into it, you kind of got that interest in it, you're working hard to get the right answers or to complete the riddle or whatever it is that's going to get you to the next level. So those achievements and those efforts make you want to put forth more, but it's a friendly level of competition. You don't necessarily want gamification to take away from that. The real purpose of it, it's not to make it divisive or complex, but to kind of tap into that inner competitive task that allows you to, or streak that allows you to spur the learning, spur the retention, and have some fun while you're doing it. I grew up with a sibling that if the board game we were playing wasn't going in his or her, they will remain unnamed, direction or favor, accidentally, the board game would get tipped over. Or if we were playing a video game, accidentally, the video monitor gets shut off and we're no longer playing. So you do want to, obviously, as we've all grown up, we play board games much better as a family, but you do want to make it fun and a little bit of competitive to kind of tap into that streak, but it doesn't need to be a full out competition. So what else are the benefits of gamification? It can certainly expedite the learning process. It allows us to, I'm just going to monitor, get back to my screen here, look at higher completion rates. Again, people stay engaged. They're going to continue their process of learning. It improves the recall and retention, supports upskilling. It's customizable. You can create gamification training opportunities that people can do anywhere at any time. So it can be that on-demand learning. And it also allows us to bring together different audiences, different generations. Everybody's played a game. Everybody can get around an opportunity to learn and engage. And you can also measure that learning because you can see as people are achieving levels based on how you structure your training games, what the outcome is and how people are doing. What questions are they perhaps getting stuck on? What's the group conversation? So you can more easily measure that. The other elements that you want to be thinking about, and Olivia is going to talk a bit about this as well, when you are setting up your game, is that you want to make sure you have a story or a narrative or some sort of theme, something that people are going to follow along with. If you're looking at a training topic, you can think of a story or a narrative that fits with that particular topic. You also want to build in little challenges. You want to keep people engaged. So although your game or whatever you choose to gamify might not be long, even if it's short, think about that constant level of engagement. Oftentimes the reward is just getting to that next level or getting that answer right. So, although we encourage and thinking about rewards built into your gamification, it doesn't have to be a big reward. That kind of inner sense of accomplishment is sometimes enough as well. And you can look at levels. You can create games that have scores or points or badges. Some people use leaderboards. So these are just some of the elements you can think about when you're setting up a game. And we'll see some examples of this later. And here's just some information on what the players or learners tend to think. Again, you can reach a broad audience when you gamify your learning and training. But most people say it makes them more productive. They'd rather spend time working through a game as part of their learning. They stay more engaged, they feel more productive, they feel like they're getting more done, and they're recalling information easier. So it certainly is a new approach or a newer approach to training that if you're not using it yet, you might find that your audience responds really well to it. And we'll talk through some of that as well shortly. And there's that big word that we all want to avoid in training, bored. So you can see here, people feel less bored when they're working through a training that's been gamified. So how do you know if it's right for you to gamify your content or if the content is right? So you can, jumped ahead there, sorry. So you can think about, are you trying to engage the learner? Are there certain training topics that you're retraining on or that you have to refresh people on periodically? Are there some of those topics that they're just less exciting? You know that they're boring, you know you have to just get through this content. Is that something that you could take and try to gamify? Do you have an audience that enjoys healthy or friendly competition? Do they enjoy little rewards? Most of us do. We enjoy anything from a small piece of candy, a little stress ball or pen or whatever you have to give out, or just the reward of getting something right as a team and motivating each other through a game. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, perhaps you have an opportunity to gamify some training content. So what topics could it be on? This is just a small sample. It could work for safety, compliance, workplace etiquette, technical knowledge, certainly using public relations or customer interactions, machine and equipment operation, new technology. So as information evolves and changes, if you have a training you did last year and now we need to update it for new regulations, there might be a way to put that new information into a small game or a fun learning opportunity. Quality assurance, onboarding. So these are just all the different things to be thinking about. Odds are we have some topics and some training content somewhere in our centers that we can all bring this new approach to. So what are some of the other potential examples of gamification besides what we're going to show you for our own LTAP poster escape session room? So these are just a couple of them that we came across. There are lots of them out there, but Marriott uses a game with their new hires or potential recruits for new hire opportunities. And the candidates run through a process of kind of designing their own hotel aspects. So purchasing inventory, training employees, serving guests, and they're doing this all online. And they earn points for customer satisfaction. You lose points for poor customer service. So it gives the hiring employer an opportunity to see how the candidate responds in certain situations. It gives the candidate a chance to stay engaged in that process. If anybody has completed an application, it can be long, it can be a lengthy process. So this is one more way to engage with that workforce. So that's kind of a neat way that they're using gamification in their operations. And there's hospitals that we read about that have what they consider faulty rooms. And this is a way to kind of identify the errors. So the employee can go into a real life hospital room setting where they've set it up with 20 errors. And the job through that game is to identify what's not right. So can you find 10 things, what's different between this picture and this picture type of thing. But it's a way to, again, reinforce the learning and kind of challenge somebody to think about what doesn't align with my prior learning here and recall certain things that help them with their knowledge. So those are just a couple examples. Obviously, with anything new that we might try, there might be some challenges that you could face. So getting people engaged and keeping people engaged. That's something that Olivia will talk about, and also Megan has some experience to share when she joins us to talk about how we can work to address some of those opportunities. Some things that you can do, of course, is just continue to build that excitement. Think visually, think hands-on. If you've had a chance to go through our NLTAP escape room, hopefully it felt hands-on, it felt visual. Just kind of create that culture and that comfort with interactive and creative play. And over time, your audience will get more accustomed to that type of learning opportunity. So we have some resources if it's helpful. If you want to check those out, we can share those. But with that quick overview, we are going to jump right into having Olivia and Megan tell you a bit more about how we set up our escape room game and some of the background behind gamification within their own centers and experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary Lee. So let's talk about what gamification looked like for LA LTAP. Let me get into our screen here. Oh, sorry, y'all. Let me get that shared. Okay. So we had our first foray into some serious gamification just about a year ago now. So I've been with LA LTAP for just over a year. And what you see on the screen in front of you is actually a picture of our LPA core course. This course is conducted over the course of 3 days. It deals with CE&I and responsible charge and basically everything that's related to LPA, including the entity state agreement. And I'm sure, as everybody knows, the entity state agreement's very exciting. Not really. So one of the very first things that Marie Walsh said to me on my second day with LTAP, which was the beginning of our LPA Palooza, as we affectionately refer to it, is that the content needed some excitement. I think she actually said that she felt the content was dry. What I saw was the content was a little boring. So she challenged me to come up with a way to make some of that content more engaging and something a little more entertaining for our participants so that we could get through some of that really dry material. So then I thought to myself, well, how do I spice this up? We've got a whole lot of stuff here to go over. We had 22 articles within the entity state agreement, and that was about 7 hours of a class and about 50 slides. And the portion of the game that we were looking to really make over was the portion that had to do with all the problems surrounding the entity state agreement and all the issues that people run into with it. So I took the entity state agreement and I said to myself, well, how can I really make this more engaging? How can I make this something that everybody is going to want to participate in after lunch, after content that's already been really boring? So I started with the question of what is the learning? What does everybody need to know? And then I asked myself what elements of a game could fit into this. So I knew I was going to need something that encompassed a whole lot of different parts. And then what kind of a reward could be offered? And so I looked at all three of these things and I said to myself, well, let's just dive down the Pinterest rabbit hole and see what kind of idea I come up with. And in that process, I had this idea of, oh, let's maybe an escape game. And I very clearly remember walking into my coworker Courtney's office and I said, I think maybe we should do an escape game for LPA. And she said, oh, that's a good idea. And kind of that, oh, that could be really interesting. And I said, it's either going to go really well or it's going to be a nightmare and there is going to be no in between. But you know what? We dove off and we dove right into it. And we really said, okay, if we're going to do this, how's it going to work? You are seeing an actual picture of my desk on the day that I started. I took a picture and I said, okay, it's going to be really great or it's going to be really terrible. There's no in between. And in that process of really looking at it and going, okay, how are we going to make this work? I really had to challenge myself to just loosen up. I really had to challenge myself to remember that this is a game and it's not to be stressful. It's not supposed to be rocket science. It's supposed to be fun. So I'm going to offer that same challenge to you guys when you start creating games a little later. Loosen up, just have some fun with it, and dive right in. So don't be afraid. It was certainly something that I was afraid of when I started, and I know how scary and challenging that can be, but you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So we're going to talk about a couple of the steps that I went through in order to write this game. It really encompasses about 5 steps. The first one is write a prompt. So when you're preparing to write a game, it's got to follow a story. It needs to have some sort of a theme. You can see the picture in front of you is actually a screenshot of what we did within that LPA class. You can see that there are some toys out on the table. We'll get to some of the other things that are going on, but there's some engagement happening there. And that was all centered around a construction story. And for this particular game, they were escaping the entity state agreement to earn their funding. So you write your prompt and then you create some clues. And you don't want them to be difficult. It's not something that you want people to actually solve the puzzles and get through things, and you want them to have fun. You don't want them to get frustrated, so keep it simple. Remember, the puzzles, the images, the clues, it's all to have fun and learning in the process. So you're going to kind of work back and forth between these two. Creating the clues might happen simultaneously with some puzzles. You might have an idea for a puzzle that you really want to work in, and you might not have a clue to go with it. So you'll work back and forth between those two sections, and actually between section 4 as well, with creating like locks or roadblocks. So there are really a lot of interchangeable pieces between sections 2, 3, and 4, where you start your prompt, you've got this idea, and then you go back and forth a whole lot in creating this kind of a roadmap through your game. You'll create some clues, then you'll go back and you'll create some puzzles, and then you might have this great idea for a lock, and then maybe you get into it and you're like, oh, that didn't work so well, or that's not going to go with that portion of the game, and kind of move things around. So it does take a while to get through the process. But once you do, and you've got everything kind of where you think it's going to work well, then you test play. And in this screenshot, you can see down in the lower left-hand corner, there's actually a roadmap that we use. And that was like the roadmap of our game. And fun fact, I actually was not there when they played this game the first time. So I wrote the game, and then I sent our fearless leader, Steve, off to conduct the game with everyone. So I had a very detailed roadmap. You might not need one as detailed if you're actually the person conducting it, but I would encourage you to still think about having a pretty detailed roadmap, so you remember all the parts, all the clues, the puzzles. And then big thing to remember with this is don't go out and buy extra things. So the only thing that we bought at LTAP was a invisible ink pen. Everything else, I just went in and I pulled stuff out of our closet and I said, okay, what can I use to create this clue? How can I create this puzzle? And I really looked at everything and I made a commitment to not spend any money. I think it was a total of $12 that it cost us for the invisible ink pens, and everything else was stuff we already had. What you see on the screen now is actually a picture of that roadmap that I was talking to. So it goes over the different puzzles that I created and how they led into one another. So it gave me a visual of, okay, they started with puzzle 1, they worked through puzzle 2, 3, 4, and that led all the way up on one track of puzzles. And then on the opposite side, they had all their lettered puzzles. They started at A and worked through E. And then those two puzzles at the end came together to give them the final clues to solve and escape. So that was kind of the roadmap of how the puzzles worked. And then, like I said, when creating the puzzles, use what you have. You really don't have to make them super complicated. They don't have to be these really exciting things. People will get excited and they'll play along with things that you would never expect. So I did a secret decoder one where they found their decoder and they found the message to decode in 2 different sections of the game, and then they had to put those things together to decode the message. We did one, you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, they had to figure out that they had to lay this card over another message, and then those cutout words were what they used to solve another puzzle. So it's really making everything really interactive. And then, of course, we have a picture of Mary. Mary is our friendly Fed down here in Louisiana, and she was actually conducting the game. And you can see back in the upper right-hand corner is Tanya from DOTD, and they were the ones who conducted the game along with Steve. And you can see they really had a lot of fun with it as well. They really entertained with everybody. It was a good time. We got great feedback about the game, and it was really something that we were looking forward to doing again, and changing some things up and maybe tweaking a thing here or there. But we were looking forward to having another round of our LPA game. And then welcome to our world now. So prior to COVID, the way that this particular session got started was we were in a training resources work group call, and Andrew asked for ideas. And I said, oh, well, down in Louisiana, we did this escape room game, and it was really cool, and people really liked it. And David Orr jumped in and said, well, I think he just volunteered. Okay, let me be very frank. I had zero plans to ever offer an escape room virtually, and I had zero knowledge about how to build one. I am not the most techie person in the world. So if I can do this, you can do this too. So we had Friday the 13th happen down here. That was the day the world imploded down in Louisiana. And from that point forward, we had to determine, okay, well, we're moving forward with this session. We're still going to do all of our posters because we love the poster session. We still want to have the escape room because it was really such a fun gamification aspect of our training that we were really looking forward to sharing. And so then we had to discover how we were going to put this all together. And lucky for me, I have two co-presenters who are fantastic. And I was able to get paired up with Mary Lee and Megan, and the three of us really put our minds to, we are going to make this work, and we're going to have a poster session with an escape room tied in. So again, before we go into the aspects of how we created this, I am not technically inclined. I could not tell you the difference between HTML and WordPress or JavaScript. No clue. Right over my head. So building a website was 100% out of the scope of my basic knowledge of computers. But we made it happen. So we have our virtual escape games. What steps are different than when we did the in-person session? So knowing our audience was a big one. Obviously, with all of our trainings, we have different audiences. Sometimes we're talking directly to locals. Sometimes we're more of our DOT sides of things. Sometimes we're with our peers. And so the level of knowledge of various programs and navigating computers and all those technical things can be very different. And also the level of engagement that you'll get and the kinds of games that people will want to play. Somebody who sits behind a computer all day might be more apt to playing something virtually, but if you've got your guys from the field who are in for a class, they might need a little more engagement to do something virtual or even something more hands-on. Then you want to consider what platform you're using. So this was one of the challenges that we had with this particular forum, because I had always worked in Zoom. And so using GoToMeeting was all new to me. We definitely knew that there were different capabilities of all the programs, and I'm sure you all have experienced that at this point. The different features of everything and all the different platforms can really affect what it is that you're able to do in a virtual game. So we had, Mary Lee and Megan and I had these great ideas that we were going to do a breakout room, and it was, you guys were all going to play in teams, and then we were going to have like all these chat questions, and well, that doesn't happen because those aren't features that we were going to be using in GoTo. So we had to get the three of us back together and really brainstorm again, which brings us to our next point: enlist some helpers. So as you're building a virtual game, know your audience, identify your platform, but enlist some helpers. You definitely want to bring your buddies in on this one. You definitely need that sounding board and those different ideas. And I can't tell you how many times the three of us said to each other, like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, it's all coming together. Or, just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other was really important. So enlist helpers. Create puzzles and images. So when you're creating these things, it's very much the same as when you're doing it for an in-person session. You're definitely wanting to take all of those elements of an in-person session, like how all the games work together and the things that you're going to cycle through, and you're going to want to piece it all together so that you get like a track that everybody can escape from. And then you're going to create the locks and roadblocks again. So it's, like I said, it's very much the same as that virtual game. I'm sorry, that in-person game. So you want to work back and forth between these. In creating this one, I know I would show Mary Lee some things, and then I would show Megan some things, and then I would go, okay, well, that didn't work so well, so let's go back and let's rework that one. So you're going to do the exact same thing as you were doing in person, and you're just going to go back and forth between creating various puzzles, various roadblocks, all around your learning objectives and how you want all those things to go together. And then you get to test play. So shout out to our test players. We had Bettina and Rachel, so thank you so much for your help with that. But we definitely did some test play over the last couple of days, and I would go through and I would test some things, and then I would send a couple things to Mary Lee, and then send a couple things to Megan, and we would all kind of test play through the game and through the various parts until we got to the end and said, oh, it all worked exactly as we wanted it to. So know that we've played a whole bunch of times between then and now. So before we dive in and before we ask if y'all are ready, Megan, can we turn it over to you to share some of the things with adult learning and some of your 4-H challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So some of you I know pretty well, some of you I don't know at all. I've been with Nebraska LTAP for about 6 years, and before that, I had about 15 years of professional education experience. I started in a K-12 classroom, and then moved over to the adult training side, working in a couple of different university departments doing outreach type programming. So a lot like LTAP, but different content. And my most recent position before LTAP was with the Nebraska State 4-H office, where we worked on a National Science Foundation project to teach systems engineering through Lego robotics and geospatial technologies to middle level learners across the country. So I wrote, and then a coworker and I trained all over to help, again, teach some of this higher level systems thinking to kids through essentially games, through Lego challenges, some that they made up themselves, some that they were given. And when I came to LTAP, so that was fun. You know, your kids think it's really cool when you get to go to mommy's office and you get to play with Legos because there's a whole wall of Legos. But then I came to LTAP, and the first thing I noticed when I came to LTAP was that people come to LTAP as a career from a couple of different perspectives. So I was a professional trainer who had learned and trained a lot of different really technical content to a lot of different audiences. I worked with some of my coworkers came from our local public agencies and, you know, or a professional engineer, much more technical oriented, but didn't have the education experience that I had. And so we had to learn to work as a team to bring our different perspectives together to make the best content for our audience. And the first observation that I had was that we taught a lot of really dry stuff in a really boring way. We weren't measuring engagement at all. So that really kind of took me aback. And one of the tools that we've been able to use is gamification to try and build that engagement. So Olivia dove in with both feet head first, you know, into the unknown by taking over a whole class. But it might be easier for you to start with, you know, take one class and what's the part that they do the worst on the test? Like, what are the questions that are always missed? And you talk about it, and you can't understand why they always miss question 26 and 33, because you know that you talk about it. But it's maybe a point in the class when there's not a lot of engagement, and we get that we lose engagement for a few reasons. It might be that we're droning on, you know, it's been too long since we've taken a break and they're really tired, or it's that thing that's right after lunch when everybody wants to take a nap. Or it might be that you're just not communicating it effectively. So maybe take that piece of a class and figure out how to make that a game. For example, when I teach flagging, we needed to be able to teach, the way that Don Neary liked to teach flagging was to have about 10 people and take a half a day and like set up cones in a parking lot so that they could actually have a street and they could practice, take turns driving through and flagging. And that's great, but that takes a lot of time and you can't train a lot of people that way. So we had to figure out how to make the course more efficient so that we could train more people in less time. So we changed it to a game using paddles made out of popsicle sticks and laminated sheets. Like Olivia said, it doesn't have to be expensive, particularly if it's an experiment. Experiment with it as cheaply as possible. And if you want to upgrade it once you know it works, you've got time and money to do that maybe. But that was a way. Now we can do flagging with 30 or 40 people in the classroom instead of 10. And we can get through a whole department in a day or maybe even less. And so I'd encourage you to give it a try, but start small. Pick, if diving in and recreating a whole class is scary, even after this awesome experience you're gonna have in the next couple minutes, start small. Pick something little out of one of your classes and find a way to make it more interesting and more engaging. A lot of our clients don't sit in a room and listen to people talk all day. They're, you know, filling potholes or operating equipment or mixing concrete. And so we're completely taking them out of their comfort zone when we put them in our class. So maybe we can do a little bit of things that are fun to help them forget that they're nervous about being in a classroom. With that, I think we're ready to play the game.
Olivia, you want to take us to our escape room?
Yeah, so let me make sure y'all are seeing the right screens here. Okay, so before we dive into the actual room itself, we need y'all to grab your phone or desktop or something that's not the same screen that you're watching the presentation on. This is going to be a dive into using multiple technologies at once. We really wanted you guys to be able to play along. So this was one of those things that we had to problem solve and how we were going to show you the escape room at the same time that you were going to be able to play it. So for our purposes, we're going to be using menti.com. So grab your phone, go to menti.com, and the code to get in is on the screen. It's 813918. And I think we were going to drop that in the question pod as well. I don't know if that's something that we can link in there, Vicki, but if we can, that would be great. If not, I'll leave this up for just another second and then I'll switch over to the other screen. So thank you so much, menti.com and 813918. So let's go ahead and hop out of here. And we're going to take y'all to okay. Are you all able to see?
We do.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, we might have lost it. It's seeing you now.
Okay. So this is what let me scroll back up to the top here. My apologies. Okay. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see our LTAP poster session escape room. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see our Mentimeter. And what we are going to ask you all to do is we are going to ask you to, oops, my Mentimeter is not presenting yet. Oh, yes, Okay, so we're gonna ask you to play along here with our escape room and Mentimeter. We're gonna scroll through the escape room as if you were the one playing, and you're going to enter the answers into Mentimeter, and then I'm gonna take your answers and plug them into the escape room, and we're gonna see if we can all escape together. So, hop on in and buckle up because safety first. And we don't want to lose anybody on our trip here. So we are going to start with Can't Escape the Posters. The year 2020 has been unforeseen, unpredictable, and unprecedented, but our LTAP centers refuse to let it be unimaginative. Join us on a road trip through the state's posters and see if you can escape the posters. So the plot. In an effort to have a somewhat normal summer vacation, you've decided to take a road trip. Keith, we didn't know about your vacation before we planned this, but you're welcome. I think we planned it around Keith's vacation. So along the way, you've encountered along the way, you will have a chance to take pit stops at centers posters from around the country. As you visit each poster, take some time to get familiar with the information. You'll stumble across some roadblocks and work zones on the way. The information you learn through the posters will help you navigate your way safely through the danger zones so you can escape the posters and complete your road trip. The rules. Use the posters. Anything you can read or click on is fair game for a clue or part of a puzzle to solve. This was very similar to what we did in the in-person session, just a side note. We had rules so that they knew these are the things to follow. You can touch anything in the room. We actually just did that with slides. But these are your rules for our digital room. There are 4 pit stops. Answer all the questions in each pit stop to escape the posters. If your answer is incorrect, you will be prompted with a hint. So let's take a quick minute here. We'll get Menti set up. I'll show you the poster from New Hampshire. Okay. So before we dive in, let's make sure we've got everybody on Menti with us. Where in the world are you right now as we start our journey? So, oops, sorry. Okay, here we go. We're getting some answers. We've got some New Hampshire, Illinois, Vermont, Baton Rouge, hi, South Carolina, Minnesota. Let's see if I can see who's furthest away. Well, it's all really tiny. In the office. I'm in the office today too. Let's see. All right. So looks like we've got a huge representation here. So you guys can all see each other's responses there on the screen. So thank you for playing along. I'm glad we know we've all got it working. Focus your attention back to the left side of the screen and let's take a quick run over New Hampshire's virtual poster here. So you can see my cursor here. I've got the little rainbow colored triangles. So that's where we're looking. How to engage in a virtual world, learn more. Let's see, using friendly e-learning catalog. You can connect with Facebook and social media, posting regular videos, Zoom. So this is all how New Hampshire is engaging in our digital world. Very cool. And chit chat and chew. I love that. That's such a cute idea. Okay. So I'll give you guys just another couple seconds here to review the bottom part of this poster, and then we'll come back into our escape room here. Oh, look, another poster. Here we are with, and fun fact, this was not intentional. I did not put New Hampshire and Nebraska at the top just because they were my partners. It just so much happened that way. So we have Nebraska's poster here. All right, I'm gonna pull this forward. I pulled the Menti forward, but you don't have to answer anything yet. So we are now on the road with LTAP, and this is the interactive poster. Megan got a chance to share about this during our poster sharing session. It was really interesting. So if anybody hasn't had a chance to get on there and play with this, I would highly encourage you to. This was, let's see, they created an app using GIS software as a method to share with their customers where they were across the state, which I think is a really cool idea. Okay, so Oh, look, and we have one more poster. Let's see, this is road PE. Thickness design, low volume road pavements. And let's see, I'll give you guys, let me pop this one out and I'll give you a couple seconds to read over this one. Y'all are right on track with the Menti here. You made it to the question before I did. Okay. So we have our road PE, thickness of low volume road pavements. This is from Local Roads Cornell Local Roads, sorry. And we're talking about the need for low volume roads, their pavements being designed to handle that workload, and the process that they put in place for designing them. Very cool. Okay. And that brings us down to our first pit stop. So we don't know where we're going. That's kind of normal for me. Take a few minutes to answer the questions to get pointed in the right direction. So before you make it too far, we'll need a map. And let's see, it looks like y'all have already answered our question here because you're a lot faster than I am. Before we get going, we need a map. Who can help us make a map? So let's see, we've got 70% of you have said Nebraska, so I'm going to enter Nebraska here and click next. And Nebraska helped us with a map. Well done. Good job, guys. And so on our next Menti here, we have a map, but what would a modern road trip be without an app? What is the title of the poster that created an app? So we've got a couple of options there. We've got load pass permits, which I don't think we've seen yet. That's coming up. How to LTAP for dummies. I think having an app like that would be really cool. And let's see, it looks like we've got 8 who say how to engage in a virtual world, and we've got 44. You know what? I'm going to go with this 8 first, and let's see. How to engage in a virtual world. Let's see what happens next. Oh, not quite. So, hint, the app has to do with thickness of pavements on low volume roads. Go back and try again. Okay. So that answer is road PE. Next. Okay, awesome. So now we're into New York has created the PE. New York Road PE created our app. So great job, New York. Thanks so much. On our road trip and in today's learning environment, we can connect from anywhere. Which option has the New Hampshire LTAP Center explored? Sorry, this is which options. So here we go, our next Menti. Which options has New Hampshire LTAP Center explored for connecting in the digital world? They're not sending carrier pigeons. Nobody said, oh, we've got one who would send carrier pigeons. I'll send carrier pigeons too. TikTok.
Watch for it.
TikTok is what my kids would use. I would have no idea how to TikTok. Okay, so we've got 61 for Zoom, 43 for a website, 52 for Facebook, 5 who have not MySpace, 9 who say all of the above. I think all of the above is a great answer. I don't know if MySpace still exists, but I mean, everything else on there still does. Let's see, let's put our top winners in here. We've got Facebook, TikTok, and, oh wait, Facebook, sorry, not TikTok, website and Zoom. And next. Congratulations, you're on the road to the escape. So we're going to continue down the road on our road trip, and we keep scrolling. Okay, we've got our beautiful poster here from Ben and our team down in Puerto Rico. And for anybody who wasn't on the poster session, this poster took us through a whole bunch of their events over the last 35 years as they're getting ready to celebrate that anniversary. They've even got the word resilience on there, so I really like that. Thanks, Ben. How did you know to tie that in with Carlos? Great job. And as we scroll down here, we've got a couple of posters that are cycling through. We have our load pass permits poster. Let's see if this will open for us. This is our load pass permits poster. And for anybody who missed that on the session, it goes over the various permitting that they had put in place for their 1.5 million load that they had to take through. And then we have our 18-wheeler, the comparison of the two, and the challenges that they had to face in order to get through that $1.5 million load and move, 1.5 million pound load and move that successfully without damaging any of their local roads or bridges. And then we have our poster for cross-training, and this is out of Minnesota. Cross-training is one way to propel a culture of innovation in public works. And I think that's just fantastic. So Minnesota partnered with Minnesota LRRB to create the fundamentals of construction inspection to address the needs of local agency inspectors. Local agencies sent not only their inspectors, but also their maintenance workers who are leveraged as inspectors when needed. So I think that's really cool. Getting everybody cross-trained on some things to have more eyes. All right, so we take it over here. Oh, uh-oh. We've been flagged for inspection. Okay. That's not good. Let's see. Our stop in Minnesota needs further inspection. So what are the benefits to cross-training here? Oh, look at you. Y'all are fast. Okay, so we've got benefit or not a benefit. Better collaboration, benefit or not a benefit. Let's see, we've got better collaboration is good, increased efficiency, benefit or not. Competition among employees. I know Mary Lee said an escape room or any sort of game doesn't necessarily have to be competitive, but anyone who knows me would tell you that I'm exceptionally competitive. So for me, that would be a benefit, but for the general public, maybe not. Confusion about job responsibilities. Maybe not so much. Workforce sustainability. Okay, so we've got clearly a top 3 here. So we're going to say workforce sustainability, increased efficiency, and better collaboration are all benefits, and the other 2 not at all. Although I would still argue the point for competition.
Just don't take over the game or shut it off, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay, but we passed. Wonderful. So we are cleared to continue down the road. And we're going to close this window. Okay, awesome. Oh, well, figures. Wouldn't that be the case? We got a flat tire. And I live near a construction zone right now, and I can actually tell you this has happened to me on a couple of occasions recently where I've started to go, oh, look, oh, flat tire, perfect. Uh-oh, you've got a flat. Decode the following message to get your flat fixed. I will probably butcher this, but I grew up in California, so I'm going to give it a whirl. Felicidad por su aniversario y aquí 35 más. Sorry if I butchered that. How many years will Puerto Rico celebrate? Okay, we got 50 years. Nobody's going with a 15. We've got 1 for 25. We've got an overwhelming number of you who are saying 35 years. We'll give you another couple seconds there to vote, see if anybody else wants to go with the 50. Not so much? Okay, let's select 35. Yay! The flat was fixed. We're back on the road, and congratulations on Puerto Rico LTAP and your upcoming 35-year anniversary. So we're going to keep on rolling here. Pit stop, because everybody needs some good snacks on a road trip. So just a quick pit stop for one question. On our North Dakota stop, we might encounter heavy industrial and agricultural equipment. How many axles did Load Pass recommend for this giant load? So look, we've got a whole bunch of answers coming in here. 12, too many. Many axles. 56, 16. I see a lot of 100. It's a whole lot of axles. Do we see any odd number of axles here? 19. We've got a couple of 19s and 18, and of course 64. Okay, I'm seeing a whole lot of 56. So let's try that first. Actually, let's try 19 and see what happens. Oh, just kidding. We got a hint though. The answer is located under the big load comparison. Okay, so y'all are telling me that the answer is 56. I'm gonna scroll up here and just peek. I'm gonna cheat. It's an open book test, so I'm actually not cheating. 56 axles. Okay, so our answer should be 56. Let's see if that helps us be able to, y'all who already told me that and Mentimeter got it right. So yay, we're back on the road. Okay, wonderful. Down we go. We continue on our road trip. We've got bridge preservation for local agencies here. And let's see what this looks like. So tools and techniques for extending the life of your community's investment. Now, I don't know if y'all know, but Louisiana has a ridiculous number of bridges. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it, but I think the number is over 1,900 bridges. It's a whole lot. So this is definitely a poster that we like to pay attention to down here. We'll cover the basics of bridge preservation, focusing on easy steps you can take to preserve your investments in transportation. So what you'll learn, the why. Maintenance activities are crucial to extending the life of a structure. Strategies, identify tools and techniques available to your agency. Cost, estimating costs as well as avenues for funding. Establish a program, ensure your routine maintenance is part of your agency's plan. And you can schedule your free session now. Visit AASHTO's website or contact Travis Kinney out of ODOT. Wonderful. Thanks for that, Travis, and the rest of the team. Okay, so let's scroll on down the road here and see what we get next. Oh, look. This is Florida LTAP. We have our safe transportation for every pedestrian. 7 spectacular safety measures. This is excellent. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons, raised crosswalks, pedestrian crossing, refuge islands. This is cool. There's a lot of good stuff on here. Road diets. I told my husband the word road diet one time and he said, what the heck is a road diet? What? And I had to explain to him the value of road diets and how having reduced vehicle speeds and the number of lanes pedestrians cross, they can add, add new pedestrian facilities such as crossing and refuge islands. The benefits of a road diet were explained to your husband, so now he understands. I'm sure most of us have some of those experiences with our families, sharing with them all of those transportation things. So back to our poster, we have leading pedestrian intervals, crosswalk visibility enhancement. So these are some excellent safety countermeasures for our pedestrians to keep them safe. Excellent.
And Olivia, I'm just going to mention we have a few minutes left.
Okay.
So if folks want to hang in, I think we have the full game. But we've got some more.
We're just about done here.
Right? We're not out yet.
Yeah. I will blow through the last couple posters then. I won't. Sorry, Cornell and Louisiana. But okay, so as we stroll around Florida, we'll feel much safer on our walk with the safe countermeasures for pedestrians. We're at our pit stop here. Which countermeasures fit speed reduction? So I'm on this first column here. Tell me all the countermeasures that you think fit speed reduction. Let's see, raised crosswalks. I see some road diets. I see some crosswalk visibility enhancements. Okay. We got all those, yeah. All right, RFB, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, so it looks like by far and away our winners are raised crosswalks, road diets, and crosswalk visibility enhancements. We've got our RFB in there for our speed reduction, so that value, we'll put that one in there. All right, let's take you on to our next one here. That was speed reduction. Let's do pedestrian visibility. Which countermeasures fit pedestrian visibility? I'll go ahead and select crosswalk visibility enhancements because I know crosswalks, of course, are good for pedestrians as long as they use them. Raised crosswalks, RFB. Oh, we've even got some LPI in there. Okay, so we've got a good selection there. All right, and let's go on to our last one here with traffic control. Okay, last one. What countermeasures fit for traffic control? Okay, yeah, we've only got two more that I'll blow through quickly, and then we'll hopefully escape. But y'all are doing really good so far, so I'm confident that we're going to make it out of here. Also, because here in South Louisiana, lunch is very important to us, and that's coming up around the corner. So I'm confident that we're all going to escape.
It's been fun to road trip with, though.
That's right. Let's see. We've got RB, LPI, road diets. Whoops. Okay. And raised crosswalks. Freaking good. So let's see. Next. Okay. We've got another question here. On our trip, we will cross many bridges. Who will help us? Who will help those bridges last through preservation? Okay. Oh, Louisiana. Hi, teammates. We've got Louisiana, AASHTO, DOT, nobody, we can't get there from here. Oh, where there's a will, there's a way. All right, well, we've got just about almost half of you now. 48, we've got 49 who say AASHTO. Now, oh yeah, okay, AASHTO it is, TSP2. And they've helped us cross the bridge, so let's finish our road trip. We come down here to the history of local roads in Cornell University. So it looks like Cornell's been around forever. 1892, the first edition of Good Roads magazine was published. 1915, the second major conference on good roads wasn't held until 1915. 1951, Cornell Local Roads Program. That's where they got their current name today. Wonderful. Very cool. So y'all have we will be sharing the links for the posters. They will be on Basecamp later, and they will also be on the NLTAPA website. So if you guys want to spend some more time looking over some of these posters, please do. And then we have into our last one down here, we have tools for virtual learning. This is from Garrett Wheat at the Transportation Research Center, which is just the other side of the office here. And so Garrett put together all this great stuff that we can use for web conferencing. These are all different apps. So lots of different things that you can look through. I encourage you to take a chance to look at some of these. We have different things like Adobe Connect, Google Meet, Skype, LifeSize, WebEx, YouTube. These are all different polling things. So we considered some of these in building our escape room, whether we were going to use Menti or quizzes. I've never heard of that one. Poll everywhere. Google Forms are good. That's actually what everything that you've been using so far in this escape room game has been through Google Forms. We have SurveyMonkey, Umu. I'm sure some of you have used that before. Presentation tools. Oh, these are some of my favorites. Canva is one that's not on here, but I love Canva. Prezi is also another one of my favorites. Let's see, micro-learning. So all that fun micro-learning stuff, very cool. Chat, Slack, Skype, all those good things to stay connected to everybody. And then all kinds of others. So as you can see, this one's a full resource of different things that you can use. Oh, QR codes. Oh, interesting. Even more tools. Oh, let's appreciate that. Thanks, Garrett. Okay. Oh, we're down to our final pit stop here. All right. So what happened first? Since 1892, Cornell Local Roads, which has happened first? Good Roads Week was hosted. Good Roads Magazine was published. Good Roads Conference was hosted. Which happened first? The magazine, the conference, or Good Roads Week? Oh, conference hosted is making a comeback. It's trying to. It's not getting very far. Okay, we've got pretty over. Oh, here it comes. Good Roads Conference. Let's try that. Conference hosted first. Oh, check the timeline again. Okay. All this traveling has made us tired or hungry. Let's see. We'll go with the overwhelming response here. Good Roads Magazine was published. The Toolbox for Virtual Learning. For anybody who got a chance to explore some of those things, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the, or if you noticed something on the list that looked new to you that you would like to go and explore, please drop that word in there. We are happy to put in all of these words. Our answer will consist of Prezi, because that's my favorite, Slack, Slip Chat. Let's see, so many, Quizlet, Canva, Menti is new to me. Menti was new to me too. Poll Everywhere. Okay, so many great resources. We got some SurveyMonkey. All right, we've got a whole bunch of answers here. Let's see if there's, well done. Congratulations, we have escaped. You are free, but you're not free to leave yet. We're not done. But we escaped the escape room, so great job, everybody. Poster voting is over, so if you come into our escape room later to play again on your own, you can't vote anymore. Voting has ended, but we do have this link available, so y'all are welcome to go in and play that again in the future. And let's take us back to our presentation here, and we will finish her up and get y'all on your way. So thanks so much for playing along with us. That was a whole lot of fun. And Megan, are we turning this over to Megan, or is it going to you, Mary Lee?
Well, so I will go ahead and take this one if you can hear me, because we'll be showing Megan's poster in a bit. So, and if you want to leave that up, Olivia, or I can show mine. 1 second. Let me just find
Whatever
it.
you prefer.
If you've got it up, so that would be great. We'll bounce right through it. Thank you. Can't. Let's see here.
Oh, no, we're viewing your screen now.
You are? Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. Saying it's paused. Let me just get back to. Are you seeing our?
Oh, we're at the end.
There we go. All right.
There we go. Drum roll, please.
Thank you to everybody who submitted a poster and who shared and collaborated. Congratulations to our first place winners. We had 2 categories we voted on. Best embodies the spirit of propelling innovation. The Minnesota LTAP submitted their poster on cross-training is one way to propel a culture of innovation in public works. So thank you very much to our first place winners for that category. And for the viewer's choice, we have moving towards our happiest and exciting 35th anniversary. Congratulations, Puerto Rico LTAP, on your 35th anniversary coming up, but also on your poster winning first place for viewer's choice. So again, thank you to all the posters. This is Puerto Rico's, and this is the one that we received from Minnesota. Again, we'll make these all available. We also had some runner-ups. So load pass permitting, win, win, win. Thank you so much, North Dakota, for submitting that. Congratulations for runner-up. Best embodies the spirit of propelling innovation. And lastly, we had a tie. So this is why I jumped in. Congratulations to the Nebraska LTAP, the poster that Megan submitted on the road with LTAP and that really cool ArcGIS mapping. Definitely check that out. And then congratulations to the tie was from the Cornell Local Roads Program poster that Adam Howell submitted on the history and the timeline of Cornell local roads and Cornell universities. So we appreciate all of you submitting posters. There's still time to play in the escape room. So we dropped that link into the chat. We're gonna work to get these posters available to you as well. So our final parting words, we put the challenge out to all of you. Megan and Olivia shared a lot about how they've gamified what they're doing. We really hope that everybody will try to gamify something. We would love to continue the sharing. Make sure that you try this out, share it with your other colleagues, with your networks, with us. Let us know how it's going. We can all learn from one another. And thank you so much for the time today. We can take questions afterwards, I'm sure, too, if anyone wants to reach out to us. Olivia, thank you for the road trip. Thank you for driving. Megan, thanks for your experiences. And we'll turn it back over to, I think, Victoria at this point.
Hello, I'm Greg Butcher, Chair of the OREAL Board. The Ohio Research Initiative for Locals program, or OREAL, is in its 5th year. With funding provided by the Ohio Department of Transportation, OREAL is one of 3 local road research programs in the United States. The program has quickly established itself as an advocate for issues relating to local roads in Ohio. The board, with its local agency diversity, is forward-thinking and recognizes the value of Ohio-focused research with a results-oriented approach. Take a minute to review the links on our website, especially the links to our projects, as well as the newly created idea discussion page. Think about potential research projects and submit your idea for consideration.
So we'll do this as a group. The nonverbal expression quiz. Which emotion are these folks expressing, do you think? Confusion. Excellent. Confusion. Okay. How about these folks? Anxious. Anxious, fear, anxiety. Okay. How about these folks? Wow, you guys are really good. How about here? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. How about this? Thinking. Thinking? Anybody else? All right, so this last one in the quiz, we have a mom trying to make her daughter laugh, so we'll see what happens. So what do you think the daughter's reaction is?
Oh my God, it's embarrassing.
Okay, so we're going to get into the portion on emotional intelligence competencies. Emotional intelligence in a nutshell, we're talking about people skills, communication skills, self-awareness as to how we influence other people when we interact. And we're actually going to get into 12 specific competencies that make up our emotional intelligence. We have a chart with 4 quadrants, okay, which are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And then within those 4 quadrants are the 12 individual emotional intelligence skills. And we'll get into the details as we go. So I think emotional intelligence is a really fascinating topic. It's based on more than 40 years of research relating to neuropsychology, behavioral science. It gets into health and safety. The research shows that about 58% of our job performance and how we are perceived by others as succeeding at our work relates to our emotional intelligence. So more than half. And the data goes on, the research goes on to show that 90% of top performers in a wide variety of organizations and types of work are those individuals that rank high in their emotional intelligence. As we go through the material for emotional intelligence, we'll see a lot of it is based on striking this healthy balance between the rational and emotional parts of our brains. And every single day we are engaging both the rational and emotional parts throughout the day. We'll start with some easy questions. Do you think likability is important? Yes. It's a valuable skill to have, right? So the research says yes, likability is so critical to our success that it can completely alter our performance. One researcher found that just 1 in 2,000 unlikable leaders were considered effective by their colleagues. So what do we mean by likability? How do we break that down? Well, a major part of likability is being dependable. Turns out the people we work with and our family and friends and our neighbors really appreciate it if they can depend on us. And then things such as caring or empathy are a major part, being friendly or amiable, positive, uplifting. Next question, do you think managers have an influence on morale, productivity, and motivation? Yes. Amen, right? Yes. Okay. No one influences an employee's morale and productivity more than his or her supervisor. A Gallup poll showed that managers make or break employee productivity, with employees rating their engagement as low as 2% if they are ignored by their managers. It also shows that 70% of an employee's motivation is influenced by his or her supervisor. So very, very important role. Let's talk a little bit about introverts and extroverts. Just from the basic terms, how many folks here would consider themselves to be more on the introverted side? Introverted. Okay. Who would think they might be more extroverted? And who's not sure? In between. Okay, that's fair. In between. All right. And this is actually a word for this. It's called ambivert. Okay? So in between introvert and extrovert is ambivert. So, hey, very good. Yeah. Here's an article called Why Ambiverts Are More Successful and Influential. And the reason is, just as you described, they display a good balance between the introvert and extrovert characteristics. They naturally engage in a flexible pattern of talking and listening, because listening is very important. They're sufficiently assertive and enthusiastic, but they're more inclined to listen to the customer and less inclined to be overbearing. This brings us to the number one skill of extremely likable and successful people, and that is being a really good listener. The process is called active listening. So when I'm talking one-on-one with that person, I want to take in the words they're saying, and I also want to try to observe their nonverbal cues.
Many of us don't listen to other people. Instead, we just think and wait for our turn to express our own opinion. Take a step back and look at your colleagues' conversations. It's likely it'll look more like two monologues where everyone tells about themselves. The cure for it is active listening. It's a very powerful skill. It brings people closer, builds trust, and helps people to open up. Here are 5 steps on how to do it. 1. Stay focused. Keep natural eye contact, don't judge, and be patient. 2. Really listen. Don't think about your similar experiences and what you should tell next. 3. Allow for periods of silence. Wait till the other person speaks again. 4. From time to time, repeat the other person's words or paraphrase it back to them. It will reassure that you really listen and encourage them to open up. 5. Understand the emotions behind the words. When you paraphrase, also try to express the other feelings back to them. Active listening is rather difficult and can be more tiring than talking itself. Be prepared for long conversations. On the other hand, you will gain trust and people will simply like to spend time with you. You will also understand them much better. At the beginning, try it with your spouse or a good friend. You'll see how great they feel after talking to you.
All right, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you all for participating. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Be safe.
Thank you. All right, it's Keith again. We'll let Columbus slip, the announcement for Columbus at the end there slip. Next up, Matt Enders for Hot Topics. Matt, take it over.
Okay, we're going to move into Hot Topics with Matt Enders.
All right, everybody. Here we go. So Hot Topics will have to work a little bit differently this year since we're going virtual and doing this way. And so in our virtual session of Hot Topics, or as was suggested to me a year or two ago, Hot Topics. So we've got Hot Topics time, which is a chance for you to be able to share your questions and get answers from your fellow coworkers out there in different places. And so I'm gonna walk you through some of the questions that I've received. And because we're not all in a room together where you're able to raise your hand and have a microphone passed to you, what we're gonna do instead as part of that is we're gonna go through and I will read you the question, and then you will need to type in some answers to what you're getting there, okay? So you'll have to type an answer if you're doing something that can help somebody else that asked the question, and then if you type in that answer to it, I will then share that. Victoria or somebody can share the answer with everyone, and then I can go through and read through what you've responded as well. All right. So let's do the first question that I received, because we only have a few minutes to do this. I have given you a scale on the screen there for you to work from, the level of hotness, the hot pepper scale. So if I get a question and I send it out to you and nobody really has an answer for that, then we're kind of on the bell pepper end of that scale. If instead we've got something where I've got a couple of answers, we might move into the jalapeno region of things. If we start to get lots of answers, lots of feedback, things going on, fills the rest of our question time, then we're moving toward the hot end of that scale. So I'm going to start off with first question here, and then you can type in your answers for me. All right, the first question relates to the have-nots in our virtual world. So in our virtual world, what ideas are you trying out to serve the have-nots? These are people who work in the field, operators, heavy construction people, maintenance people, people who tend to not have an office job. What are you doing to try and provide training to these people who either don't usually have access to virtual training or really don't want to do virtual training? What ideas are you coming up with? What things are you doing to try and reach out to those folks right now? So that's our first question. What are you doing to reach the have-nots in our now very virtual world? So type in your answers on what we get there, and I will share what I see here. All right. The have-nots of the world. Be thinking, typing in on that. Let me pull that up here. All right, have-nots. Anyone, what's trying? Thinking about that as you talk about the have-nots of the world, the things that we're dealing with on that. Also be thinking about, in a sort of related vein to that, if this one helps you get your arms around that also, in addition to these challenging people to reach, the have-nots out there, your coworkers, your local employees, your DOT employees, all of that as you're trying to reach out to them. As you try to reach out to those folks, another question to think about is, how about in addition to the have-nots that are maybe challenging to reach and difficult to get to, also think about the very hands-on training courses, things that are usually done in person. And I know I've seen a little bit of information about certifications and things you normally do in person, but also think about really difficult topics to do in a non-real world situation The one we're dealing with right now, and I don't have an answer, so I'm looking forward to anything you can share, is what are you doing for those hands-on things like bridge inspections? Have you come up with ideas about stuff like that as you're dealing with things like a bridge inspection where normally you need to be on-site, hands-on training, you're all looking at the same thing out there? Have you come up with ideas related to those really challenging, very hands-on things that you normally would want to do in person? So I've gotten a little bit of answer on some folks in trying to reach some of these hard to reach have-not folks, that they have done some kind of town hall trainings, more like roundtables where you can go out there and you can share and talk about kind of what you've done in more of that kind of a setting, not really necessarily a standard online training, but more of a discussion forum for those kind of things to do in a virtual setting. So an opportunity to try and have maybe what would normally be an in-person, in a room discussion, and try and hold that same kind of discussion virtually. So I've got that. Let's see, no one else gave me anything yet. Be thinking about that. These are tough questions, that's why I'm asking. Let me shift to another one while you think about those, and if you can type in any answers to that. Another of those is thinking about those operations, hands-on, out in the field kind of workers. Is anyone offering anything related to distracted driving training for those workplace employees, those people out in the workplace that have to operate out there? And I don't know if that's specifically related to in a virtual setting or if that's also related to anything in person. So think about for those hard to reach folks, workplace employees, anybody doing anything related to things like distracted driving to be an aid to them. So let's see. We've got, let's see. Looking for more answers from anyone here. Apparently, we are either on the bell pepper end of the scale, hotness scale, or these are really, really hard things to answer, and people haven't come up with good answers yet. We did have some folks do some of like the COVID safety specific, like tailgate talks, so trying to share with folks through the tailgate talks what they have done to try and reach out to folks. So that's another option to try and get to folks. All right, so anyone else on either the really hard to reach employees or anyone on those really hard to reach teach topics? So we have a really short time today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say we're gonna be back tomorrow again. We have a section of hot topics every day. So what I want you to do is in the interim, if you think of something that you're doing in those areas, if you could send me a note on that, just send me a quick email and just say, here's an answer to one of those hot topics questions. You can send that to me. I can ask it again tomorrow while we're here and see what those are. And I have other questions that have been submitted that I can cover. Also, if you have new questions at any point during any of the presentations, if somebody says something that triggers something that makes you go, ooh, I wonder how they do that, or I need to know more about that, or who else is doing that, then you could go ahead and share that information. Also, just by typing it in, sending it to the organizers here, and we'll get that information. We'll put in those new questions as well. So thinking about for in the next 24 hours, if you have an answer to the things that we just asked, go ahead and send those answers to me and I can share those tomorrow. I might rerun these questions. We didn't have many answers right off the bat, and you can give me any of those answers. If you have new questions, send those, and we will go for a slightly extended 10-minute version of this tomorrow. But with that, I will kick it off to our next presenter.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it again. Yeah, get us your answers. I wanted to thank the Training Resources Group for the previous session. Our next session is coming out of the Innovations Work Group, Asset Management Implementation for Local Road Agencies. And Matt Kate, you are the moderator.
Unmute, make sure you can hear me, and let me see if I can get us into full screen mode. There we are. All right, well, thanks for sticking with us to the final session of today. Welcome, everybody. So today's topic, on behalf of the Innovation and Implementation Work Group, we chose to focus on asset management implementation for local agencies. And so obviously we're focusing on the implementation side of our work group more so than the innovation side. But I think, we can also make the case that asset management is also an innovation for many agencies because it's new to them, or maybe even that it's innovative for some of our LTAP centers because we haven't been able to do as much as we want, or maybe it's just not been on our radar. So before we get started, we'll make a few introductions. So should have introduced myself already. My name is Matt Kate. I am the co-chair of the Innovation and Implementation Work Group. My other co-chair is Rich DeMoncos, and I think Rich is with us, but has no way to jump up and down and say hello to everybody. So Rich, hello. And as we go through things today, I'm going to hand off soon to our three presenters, and let me give you a little bit of a background or history to how we got to the presentation we have today. So as we hatched this idea back in the late winter, early spring, we had a picture for this session that included three separate stories of access management success or progress in the three centers that are featured today. But as we really dove into this, and I think as things had already kind of shifted towards the virtual conference format, all three of the presenters came together, and this idea hatched that rather than focusing on each center's individual story, we would kind of unite and put our powers together and give you this more overarching story about innovation, not only in these centers, but focus on how other centers may be able to fill a need for their local agencies by focusing on various aspects of asset management. So before we go any further, let me take care of the introduction for all three speakers right now before we get started. So first up is going to be Tim Calling for the Michigan LTAP Center. Tim is a registered professional engineer in Michigan and Wisconsin, and worked as a civil engineering consultant for 10 years prior to joining Michigan Tech University in 2003 as a senior research engineer. In 2010, Tim assumed the responsibilities as the director of the Center for Technology and Training, which is part of Michigan Tech's Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. Tim has a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering and a master's degree and PhD in civil engineering from Michigan Tech University. He is primarily involved in outreach and technical support to transportation agencies and performs research in the field of pavement management. Our second presenter today is going to be Pat Connor. Pat's with the Indiana LTAP Center. Pat is a registered professional engineer in Indiana and Michigan and is a graduate of Purdue University in civil engineering. Pat spent 12 years designing and inspecting bridges around Michigan and Indiana. Pat is currently the research manager for the Indiana LTAP Center within the Lyles School of Purdue University. And our final presenter today is a good friend of mine, good coworker, Dr. Ayrton Coles. And Ayrton is a research associate at the University of Tennessee Center for Transportation Research. He holds BS, MS, and PhD degrees in civil engineering from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Ayrton is responsible for curriculum development and is the leading instructor of the Traffic Signal Academy program here at the Center for Transportation Research. The Traffic Signal Academy is a program listed as a training resource on FHWA's Arterial Management Program website since 2012. He has 10 years of practical experience in traffic engineering with both public and private agencies and has served as an adjunct assistant professor with the UT Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, teaching traffic engineering operations. And what our three presenters will be telling us about today. So we're going to lay out again this story about what is asset management, what asset management activities have these three centers been involved in? And we'll wrap things up, or maybe mix into the presentation, this idea of what can you or what can your center do in the area of asset management as well. So we're going to look at why should you care about this topic? What range of services do centers active in this topic offer? We'll provide some opportunities here. How did our centers get started, and how would you get started? And ultimately, at the end of the presentation, we'd like to entertain questions and comments from our audience. And then our learning objectives, taking a look at things in a little bit different fashion. After the webinar today, we hope that you'll be able to explain the impact of providing asset management training and support. And I am covering part of my screen. Asset management support can have on local agencies that you serve. We want to help you articulate the benefits to your center for providing asset management training and support. We want to articulate the steps that centers that currently provide this service have taken to develop their programs. And finally, we want to list the resources available for any center wanting to get started or to expand in this area. And before we get started and I hand things off to Tim, we actually have a set of polling questions that we would like to share with you. And these questions will help us build a little bit better understanding of where the audience is in the asset management process, what you're doing, and may help our presenters focus or de-emphasize on a few of the things in their presentations as we move forward. So Victoria, if you're able to go ahead and start the polling, I'll hand things over to you.
Okay, I've got the first poll question up. And we'd like to know, does your center teach any form of asset management classes? And select the responses. If for some reason your response isn't being accepted on the screen, it's probably because you have it full screen mode. And you need to go ahead and take it out of full screen mode in order to vote. We'd like to get at least 80% of you voting. So if you're doing something else right now, please come back to the screen and vote. And we are not recording how you vote, so don't worry about that. That is one piece of data that we're not collecting behind the scenes, even though we do have a huge list of questions for Matt Enders for Hot Topics tomorrow and the next day. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. We're getting close there, so share the results with you. We have 22% that said very frequently offers several classes, 31% occasionally offer a few classes, 21% says they've offered them in the past but they don't currently, and 26% said no, but they would like to offer classes. So I'm going to hide those results. Do you want me to go to the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Here we go. Next one. Is there currently an asset management initiative in your state? Oh, they're definitely voting now. We've had lots of comments also in the question box for Pat about whether or not he drives a black Firebird that talks. So he'll have to address that when he gets to his portion of the presentation.
We'll let him handle that question.
Yeah. For our millennials, you'll have to go watch Knight Rider tonight on some replay, and you'll understand what people are talking about. I think that was the name of the show, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. Okay, folks, a few more people vote, please.
I don't drive a black car anymore, but I do spend most of my time on the beach doing lifeguarding still.
There you go. All right, I'm going to close this poll question down, share the results. We have 31% said many local agencies are already doing asset management as a business practice. 41% have some local agency doing it, but it's not an industry standard. 16% local agencies have not adopted it, but they have an interest, and 12% says that there doesn't seem to be an interest in asset management. So I will hide that and we'll go to the next question. And do you have the services of an engineer on staff at your LTAP center? Now this one should be easy, guys. One person did put a comment in the question box that for asset management, there is not an initiative that they're aware of in their state, but there's a lot of interest by the locals, and they said that wasn't an option on the poll. So
good.
We can only fit 5 options in per question. So thank you for adding that one. Okay, we're getting up to our response rate. So I'm going to close this question down. Yes, and one person mentioned that they actually have more than one engineer in their center, which is awesome. I'm going to share the results. 80% said, yes, we have one, and I'm guessing that's those who had more than one too. And then 10%, they could get the services, but they don't have full-time staff, and 9% said that they don't have access to this type of person. So I'm going to hide that. And then our last polling question is up. What's your knowledge level with asset management? Now, I want to mention, since it's probably one of the last times I'll be on here, the audio, that at the very end today, when we end, there is going to be a screen that'll pop up after you close out of the webinar. That's our survey. So if you would please take a few minutes and respond to the survey, we would really appreciate it, because we intend to look at those results, as soon as everyone's finished responding, and, potentially incorporate changes even for tomorrow based on what your responses are. So we're going to do real world just-in-time response to your survey results. So, all right, we are there with the question. I'm going to go ahead and close that one out and share our last set of results on the poll. We have 16% that are well-versed, 43% know the basics, but feel they still need to fill out their skills. 17% said it's all new to them, and 23% said somebody else at the center would be responsible for it. So with that, I'll hide those results, and it is all yours again.
All right, and we are actually ready to hand things over to Tim.
Hi, Victoria. Can you switch me over to presenter? Thank you.
Yep, just did. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, looks like we're up and running. So thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate you getting us going on the content, and appreciate it, Victoria, for hosting today and getting us going. Also appreciate the fact that you did come to the best part of Michigan and did a drive-by on our center. So I think you've started something new there. So like Matt said, we're doing a combined presentation, and again, we want it to be less of a technical discussion. So this is not going to be a discussion about pavement deterioration curves and rating systems and distress. We're not going to look at pavement cracks and all sorts of other things, distresses in bridges. This is really meant to be kind of an overall view of how your center can function, and really an appeal to look at asset management. So first I want to start with kind of the national significance for asset management. When we start looking around, asset management goes back in the transportation bill back to 1991 in the first transportation bill that I remember, which is ICE-T. So that had a requirement in it that said that local agencies need to manage their roads with an asset management system. So that requirement was actually rescinded, but that's actually what got us started here in Michigan in dealing with asset management. So 91 came, that was the first time that local agencies and transportation asset management were mentioned in the same bill. Move forward a couple years, and when we get to the FAST Act and FAST Act and MAP 21, both of those acts had significant asset management components in them. So currently the FAST Act, that's the bill that we're under now for, well, until Congress extends it or puts a new bill out there. Then I think what's significant with the FAST Act is that it put in national performance standards on local roads. So on the national highway system, and clearly local counties and cities own parts of the national highway system. So that's the first time that there were actually national performance standards set aside. And I think when we were talking about this presentation, Ayrton, our co-presenter today, said it best. He said, we live in a performance-based society now. And I kind of think about it from the standpoint that asset management is in the transportation bill. It's been in for a while, and there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, right? We've kind of, asset management has become part of what we do in transportation, how we manage transportation. So, you know, in the FAST Act, there is a requirement for states to have asset management plans. That's at the state DOT level, but also in that state DOT level, they're required to have an asset management plan on the national highway system. And again, local agencies own part of that system. So again, you can start to see where this overlap comes with asset management and getting into local agencies, you know, having an effect on it. There's also two packages, or two, I guess I should say, programs that are in the transportation bill that have funding associated with them that DOTs can get access through. And I thought it was kind of serendipitous that both of these programs, the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program and the National Highway Performance Program, both of these programs actually explicitly say that they can be used as match towards the federal share of the LTAP program. Those are also the programs that have an asset management or asset management as a component, as an appropriate activity. So again, as a LTAP center, I feel it's pretty clear that the transportation bill allows us or actually encourages us to do asset management. Now, looking ahead in other areas where we might be, where LTAPs would be focused on asset management, again, if we look to our partners in federal highways, EDC4 has a topic, which was pavement preservation. So pavement preservation is really a building block to asset management. So clearly that's an innovation that Federal Highways wants LTAP centers to push forward. That's clearly kind of in that frame of asset management training. And then if we look to our forthcoming LTAP strategic plan, there are some core competencies, and some people may remember this picture. This is a snap I took of the presentation that Federal Highways did on the local agency survey that was used to build the components of our forthcoming LTAP strategic plan. And you can see in the corner that asset management is listed. Actually, you can't see because somebody put an iPad up and they were doing the same thing I was, taking a picture of the slide. But you can see that asset management is one of the top, say, 6 or 7 topics out of every single topic that was put out there. There were quite a lot of topics that were returned in that national survey. And so asset management was one of the top topics that were in there. So presumably that's going to be a learning objective in our forthcoming LTAP strategic plan, the core competencies. So again, there's more of this overlap and this fit that asset management is on par with one of those topics like safety that LTAP centers should be looking at. If we look to our partners in other areas on kind of that national level, there are things like TRB that have a subcommittee, pavement asset management systems, or pavement management systems, local agencies or local government subcommittee. I know we have some of the LTAP centers that are actually on that subcommittee. And of course, the group that we work very closely with is NACE, National Association county engineers, and one of the people that is the chair of the Pavement Preservation Committee is one of our county engineers, Lance Malberg. And on their page, they clearly list National LTAP and NTTD programs as a supporting resource. So again, I think there's the expectation from our partners that we're going to be doing this stuff, that we're going to have some expertise or resources in this area. Now, when we look kind of more than nationally, when we look outside of the country, outside of the US, and we start looking around at other countries, there's definitely a move to have asset managers as a job title. So the top position in a road agency may not be the county engineer or the city engineer. It's really a top position, a top tier position in a lot of these road owning agencies in, say, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, are asset managers. And so it's kind of this fusion between engineering or technical people and business people. And those are like the top rated positions in those agencies. They're the people that have the technical skill and the financial acumen to actually drive projects forward. And we can see that even domestically here, companies like Boeing are looking for asset managers. And so again, this is internationally, and we've actually started to see this start to take hold as people in the US have developed a culture of asset management. And this is an example of one of our local agencies, the city of Traverse City. It's a moderate-sized city, and they actually have an asset management division. Okay? Zoom in on John's shirt. They actually have shirts printed with asset management division. And I thought this was neat. This was showing that local agencies in the country are starting to develop this as it's on the radar. There's divisions, departments, things of that nature. And just to show you that it's not purely a Michigan thing, I just did a couple of searches to try to find different local agencies around the country that have an asset management department or division or bureau. And there are clearly many of them. This was just a quick web search in many different states. So again, I think local agencies in Michigan, this is becoming a reality, or Michigan rather, in the United States, this is becoming a reality that the departments are starting to form around the concept of asset managers and asset management. So again, kind of more evidence, right? So when we look at why is this taking hold, why are these things, why is asset management starting to fundamentally change what we do in transportation? If we were to take a really rough, and these are rough numbers, these are back of the envelope, about as back of the envelope as they come. Clearly at the DOT level, everybody agrees that asset management is a good thing and it's a needed thing. And so just out of fun, I decided to take a look at, how many miles of road we have. We have roughly 4 million miles of road. About 1 million of that is state or federal roads. If we value that at $3 million, $3.3 million per mile, that's about $3.1 trillion. Now that's a little bit of value in just the roads. If we just start to look at local agencies, so locally owned roads, we've got about 3.2 million miles of roads. And again, taking a conservative estimate saying, it's about $1 million a mile to build one of these roads, we have about $3.5 trillion. So these are huge numbers, obviously, but clearly the value in asset value is definitely there on the local side. And kind of one of the maxims when we start looking at does it make sense to manage an asset is, do we have enough of a thing to make it financially beneficial to manage? And clearly 3 million miles of road is probably something we should be managing. So kind of taking that same concept a little step further, if we look in our state, in Michigan, each county road commission, so we have 83 county road commissions, they have about 1,000 miles, roughly, on average 1,000 miles of road. Each one of our county highway engineers manages over $1 billion in road assets. And these are some rough values for bridges, bridge value, in the hundreds or tens of hundreds of millions. So again, these are huge numbers. And to kind of give some perspective to that, because when we start talking billions and hundreds of millions, it kind of blows my mind. When we look at things like mutual funds, right? Mutual funds where we invest our retirement, about how many billions or millions or trillions of dollars are there in mutual funds? Well, there's $17 trillion in mutual funds in the US. There's about 9,600 mutual funds. So each mutual fund that we invest in has about $1.8 billion on average. So we think about it, the people that are managing these mutual funds are kind of the pedigreed racehorses of finance, right? These are the people that went to Harvard, and they're very highly trained, very highly skilled people that make on the order of $1 or $2 million a year on a bad year. So these are the people that are managing $1.8 billion in funds each. And we've got all of these local agencies that are managing something similar in asset value, and clearly something that has economic value beyond that if it's mismanaged. So to kind of relate to that, how do people relate to infrastructure? This was some interesting facts and figures from the Transportation Investment Advocacy Center. So they actually track all of the millage or bond proposals, so proposals that people vote on in all the states in the US. And one of the things that they did is they looked at transportation measures where people voted on ballot measures from year to year to year. And these were the number of measures. So if we look in like 2018, you can kind of see a pattern where on cycle years, there's more measures that go through versus off cycle years, there's less measures that are voted on. But if we look at the number of measures that have passed, like 2018, over 500 measures, ballot measures nationwide that were voted upon, put forward for local tax millage. That's, again, 10 roughly per state. What's incredible to me is the pass rate on these. So this is what this line shows the pass rate, somewhere between 70 to 90% pass rate. That's amazing. To get 70 to 80% of anything passed in voting is incredible, and especially tax issues. What I think is interesting here is that local measures far, far, far outweigh state measures. Now, you'd say, well, of course, there's only 50 states, there's lots of local agencies, lots of local measures. When we look at the dollar amounts, that kind of tells the other part of the story. So this is the dollar amounts that are approved in funding in billions. So 2016, there was $200 billion approved on local tax measures for roads across the country. So if we divide that up, that's about $4 billion per state. Michigan's entire budget for transportation is $5 billion. So these are huge numbers. And when we look at local measures passing versus state measures, the state measures really aren't even on the scale. I mean, they're just not even there. So again, this tells me that people want to invest in local agency roads. Now, you're probably asking, why are you telling me this? When we had our first local millage pass in Michigan, one of the counties that did it using asset management as the basis. It became almost like a contract with their townships. This is what we're going to do. If we have this much funding, this is what the outcome is going to be. And it's been a very positive formula. Show me what you're going to give me, show me what it's going to cost, and I'll decide if I want to pay extra. And so this is, again, the Michigan ballot measures that have went through, again, and the numbers of millions of dollars that have been approved at each one of these different millages. This is for any city, village, or county in the state. Again, the numbers are very large. It's surprisingly large. This is from our County Road Association. This is a press release that I snipped out from last year. So again, they're saying on the county level, 100% renewal since 2008 for millages. And again, I think that's because our local agencies are using asset management as a process for communicating with stakeholders, with the taxpayer, and saying, this is what we're able to do with funding, and this is what the condition of the roads will be if we don't have the funding. This is what it will be with the funding. These are the projects we're going to do. And again, I think what's interesting in the Michigan example, 75% support. So that's not the pass rate, that's the vote percentage that they've got, 75%. So in a very highly polarized world that we're in right now, again, to get 75% of people to agree to a tax a voluntary tax measure is amazing. Okay, people value roads. Okay, so that's why local agencies may be interested, right? They're interested because they're interested in being able to understand what type of a contract they can get with the local community to better their roads. When we start looking at how asset managers, again, local asset managers, what resources they have and what skills they need, these are typically what we see in international skills for asset managers. And you can see we typically have all the things with green checks. Those are things that we already have a program for, or we have a way to do it. You know, they're more typically a senior level position. Again, each individual agency has a way for people to ascend. The things where we start getting sketchy on, where we don't have resources, is knowledge of asset management systems and or GIS software. You know, there's not a huge knowledge of those areas. They're starting to get developed by the vendors that offer those services. Thorough understanding of asset data and its and IT governance, and that's something that's starting to come in on the education side. Some of the things that are still missing: thorough working knowledge of asset management practice. So really the only way to get that is professional development classes right now. There's really not a lot of universities. There's a couple, but there's not a lot of universities offering classes in this area to get a certificate or diploma. And even if they are, there's this whole pipeline of people that have already passed their higher ed period and probably aren't going back to college. And we have to address kind of the knowledge gap with those people right now. So again, that puts it solidly in kind of the LTAP program's wheelhouse. So my last slide, why should my center get involved? Really, again, there are very few formal education programs. There aren't programs other than continuing development. There is a huge lack of local agency scale resources and training. So again, there are programs from NHI. There's actually one from NHI that was focused on local agencies that I know some of the centers had reviewed. I think that may be getting a little bit older. But resources like AASHTO's Transportation Asset Management Guide, it's a great resource. It's starting to get a little bit dated, but a big part of that resource is for large agencies. So it doesn't fit local agency scale when you start talking about, you know, I need to build a team of people that are going to do this, and I'm going to need my, you know, my GIS person and my management person and my engineer and my finance person. And we have a county engineer that says, well, wait, I'm all of those people. It's me, it's all me. So it's a great resource for, you know, steering a very large organization. It's really focused more on organizational change, but it really doesn't relate to local agencies very well. One of the other issues is that asset management is the intersection between kind of the technical, the engineering, if you will, and financial. And so in my mind, I always see like the two baseball players running towards a fly ball and saying, I got it, I got it, I got it. And then they get close to it and they say, oh, you got it, you take it. So it falls pretty soundly right between technical and financial. And again, that's an opening for us. Certainly it is considered a reform initiative. So legislators absolutely love this, both on the state level and on the national level. So again, that's one of the reasons that this is not going away. It's one of those absolute truths, just like safety, where it's almost impossible to be opposed to it because it is an efficiency measure. And it is a tool that local agencies can use. So it's not a burden on the local agency. It's actually something that allows them, once they're set up, to make better decisions and to better be able to illustrate the condition that they're in. And again, when we start looking at other centers that have done asset management, so again, what's the self-interest for you as a center? There are other centers that, like the three that we have today, but there's also certainly other centers that have built significant programs over very small, you know, little starts. And you know, I think you'll see that later on in the presentation that these activities mesh very well with the LTAP program, and they allow centers to build more and more resources. So with that, I am going to turn over to Pat Connors, and Pat is going to talk about the different types of services that that the three LTAP centers that are here today offer. So Pat, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me get my screen shared here. And there it is. And let me get that going. There we go. So building off of what Tim was saying, and there might be a little bit of overlap here as well, but my portion was more to focus on some of these centers who have embraced asset management and taken on what are some of the activities and services that they're doing. Some of these start to blend together probably throughout my presentation. It's hard to distinguish between some of these, but just kind of looking through coordinating and facilitating statewide asset management initiatives, statewide analysis and reporting, training, technology transfer, and what some future plans are for some centers as well. But before I get started, let me just kind of build off of what Tim was saying. Something that became evident for me and my personal experience here at LTAP to help solidify why we wanted to take on asset management. We were dabbling and providing some payment management and asset management training before. And one of the services and activities that we do here is give a presentation when there's an optional funding source for counties to adopt. And in order for them to adopt it, it's called the wheel tax. And for them to adopt it, there's a public hearing, public notice, and we offer to go to those public meetings and provide a little presentation on what it is, what it means for the county, what it means financially for the county. And every one of these meetings I go to and give this presentation on what the wheel tax is, you always get the question, or if this tax is going to add $500,000 to the county's highway budget, the county always reports, well, that can pave, it costs $150,000 a mile to pave, so we can pave 5 to 10 more miles of roadway per year, or we can chip seal so many extra miles per year. But there was one year I went to 2 meetings. I remember this pretty distinctly. It was in the same week. One was in one county, and one of the elected officials, one of the county councilmen, asked, well, what is the need for the county? And the county just said, well, we could be able to pave 10 more miles of roadway with this extra $1 million we're going to get from this. But I think really what he was asking is like, well, what is the total need for, what does that $1 million mean towards what we need? And then the next day I went to another county council meeting, and it was a very, very rural, one of the smallest counties in Indiana. I think the population is like 5,000 people. This tax is going to add maybe $200,000 to their highway budget, to their highway program. And a guy from the audience said, we know that our highway departments need more money, but what is this $200,000? Is this a drop in the bucket? What does it take? What does the highway department need? I don't want to vote to pass the tax if it's not going to get me nowhere near where we need to get. And so those 2 meetings really stuck out to me as, we got the elected officials asking for data and what our needs are. And we got our general public saying, yes, we are willing to, pay more money at our registration on our vehicles to get better roads. But, I think it would have been much better for that county to stand up there and say, well, we manage 800 lane miles of roadway. Our average condition rating is this, based with our current budget over the next 10 years. There's where we're going to see our condition of our roadways go to with deterioration. And with adding this $200,000 or $500,000 or $1 million, this is what it means in terms of like a network condition, and what we can see in the results of that being, performance, like Tim was saying, a performance based program. How is our network going to perform with this additional money? So that really kind of helps solidify to me that asset management, we are at LTAP, we weren't doing enough to help equip our counties and our cities and towns be able to do that analysis and that kind of preparation to communicate with their public and with their elected officials that they report to. So one of the first things that we did here was coordinate. This is an Indiana initiative that, you know, to highlight here. We brought in, there was an initiative to create a statewide local agency transportation asset management program. So we got ahead of the ball here, and, you know, and our advisory board actually asked us to do this as well. So we invited all the stakeholders there, as you can see: city engineers, county engineers, street supervisors, state DOT, federal highway, you know, elected officials, the different associations, all came in together to help define what asset management is and what the minimum requirements were going to be for this program. But, you know, the main point to the slide here wasn't to really kind of show you all that who we invited or what we necessarily talked about. But if you look through all those stakeholders in there for the local agencies there, what better group to take initiative and to provide, you know, steer a program than what we thought the LTAP program was for. You know, the city engineers have a narrow approach, or, you know, the concept of asset management are the same regardless of where you're at, but how that is practically applied changes from city to county to towns to DOT and to elected officials. So we felt like that we were best suited to be able to represent and steer this initiative. So when you think about a local agency statewide transportation program, then there's training and there's technology that needs to be shared and talked about, and possibly even, you know, maybe a statewide software program like Michigan's developed. So there's training and technology transfer. That's what we do. We interact with local agencies. That's what we do. And we train people on highway operations. So we felt like I said, we felt that we were best suited to do that. These are the, so, and then when we called this first meeting, I'm not to spend too much more time on this, but when we called this first meeting, everybody had a different concept of what asset management was. So we felt like this was very helpful for us just to help cast that broad vision of what asset management was. We had people showing up to that meeting saying, well, all we need is that PASER program, or all we need is that RoadSoft program, which are all part of asset management, but it wasn't the full asset management. So we went over these 6 components of asset management that we got from Federal Highway. And then we also defined what those minimum requirements were going to be for pave and bridge asset management plans. And the goals of this committee were to try to, and something advantage I think the LTAP has with the relationship with our local agencies, is that we didn't have a lot more bureaucratic noise in the way. We wanted to keep something very simple that didn't create a lot more hoops and red tape for local agencies to have to jump through, because a lot of the local agencies, when the statewide initiative was coming through, was already starting to complain that they had to do one more task and one more thing that they had to do. So we wanted to show them the benefits of asset management and also not get too much red tape and requirements built into it. So something simple that any size community could achieve without hiring a consultant, that they could do on their own. So we decided, looking at those 6 components of asset management, we stuck with creating an inventory and condition ratings, so having the data, and then developing objectives and measures and some performance goals, and then developing a 5-year plan. So really step 1 and 2 of the 6 components of an asset management program. And then our office decided in our training, we're going to try to hit all 6. We didn't really know what to do with investment strategies, so we didn't feel like we were quite set up for that, but we could help calculate, give tools and resources to help calculate that gap identification, life cycle costs, and risk management, looking at the different funding sources and developing financial plans. So we're going to teach on the 5 components, but the requirements were stuck to those 2. In Michigan, in about 2000, if I remember right, Michigan created the Transportation Asset Management Council, and this was kind of a joint effort between the DOT and the local agencies to be able to communicate what their need was for their governor and their legislators for funding. Michigan serves as their technical advisor for this council, and about 65% of their activities are associated with the training and PASER and asset management and RoadSoft associated that they do for the Transportation Asset Management Council. And again, similar to the committee that we created, their council includes the DOT, the county association, municipal and cities and towns associations, the county road commissions, and the planning organizers. And in both of these councils, if you see, if I were to go back and you look at the members of these councils and these committees, these are all kind of the upper executives in the state. And so by creating these initiatives in asset management and getting these groups of people together, it kind of really helped make our center, and I think Michigan would say the same thing and has said the same thing, that helps made it more relevant to the state, and getting tables, a seat at the table in governor meetings, and being called in for hearings to testify at the State House, on funding questions. So these are some of the other activities that we do as well, and I know some of the other centers do as well, but we create an annual report. Just report on what the inventory and condition ratings are for pavement and bridge data. I know the council in Michigan does a lot of this work here. We develop a transportation needs assessment every few years for the legislators to see what the funding is like. We are called in, like I said, to testify at our State House. And one of the reasons why I think it's also important to start collecting this data now, I wish we had the amount of data that we have now 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is one of the arguments when our state increased the gas tax a few years ago was, well, the gas tax is going to decline in a couple of years. So being able to have that data and funding levels now will help provide that information at those meetings when we go to more different types of user taxes or different vehicle mileage taxes and stuff like that, when those funding conversations get started. Looking around the country also at some of the other services that some of the other states provide, I thought New York and Utah had some neat programs there where they will actually take an employee, or New York has some student interns come in the summertime, and they'll go and sit down with the municipality, help collect inventory information, help build those maintenance programs on their asset management plan. So more of like a service that they provide there. Utah looks like they have a very similar program where they provide services to inventory and rate on the road, signs, sidewalks, even get the sign retroreflectivity, traffic counts, and then they also provide a free GIS software called TAMS to their local agencies. Some of the training that's available out there. In Michigan, they have training on pavement distress identification, asset condition assessment, preparing asset management plans, intro to asset management. They do the PASER. They provide training on PASER, which is a condition rating for roads. And then they also provide training on asset management for elected officials. And I would echo, I think probably the need for that came as when you start teaching transportation asset management and doing network level analysis and demonstrating the power preservation on your network and the impact it has on obtaining your performance goals. Immediately you start getting the questions after the session's over. I need my mayor to hear this. I need my county commissioners to hear this. And we had that. I know Tim has told me they had that as well. So it's a good idea to help provide that training for the elected officials. We try, yeah. And then they also provide pavement and bridge preservation workshops. Here in Indiana, as this became more of a hot topic, talking about hot topics, we rebranded one of our Road Scholar classes in our Road Builder program as asset management to provide that core training for that. Another one of our Road Scholar classes is Bridge Basics, and we dedicate usually a portion of that to bridge asset management and how it applies to bridges. And then again, Rich and I both went up to Michigan and got trained on their asset management and PASER program. So we do a lot of the training that they do in Michigan down here in Indiana as well. Tennessee, they're starting to get into asset management, as Ayrton will tell you here when I'm done. But they provide training on traffic signal asset management. They help manage the timing information and the maintenance documentation for the different traffic signals around the state, which is becoming much more relevant with CAVs, the autonomous vehicles. Wisconsin, they developed the PASER method or program and provide training on PASER in Wisconsin as well. North Dakota, this is probably more fits in that blurry area of services, but they went around and had a contract to provide PCI ratings on all their paved roads and created a data management system to house that and all the as-built information on roads. As far as technology transfer, some of the things that are available out there, Michigan when they started back in the 90s, started with spreadsheets, doing this network level analysis, which then grew into the RoadSoft program. Indiana, where we are at that spreadsheet level right now, where we provide some spreadsheets both for bridge and pavements to help analyze their networks to see what kind of impact of funding is going to have in the future with deterioration. Some of the centers provide asset management software, Michigan and Utah. Utah has that TAMS program, like I mentioned, and Michigan has a RoadSoft program that helps manage pavements, bridges, small structures, signs, safety, and underground utilities. Some other centers have data collection devices. Part of the RoadSoft program and TAMS is like a GIS-related aspect to it that helps collect data. In Indiana, we were able to leverage Purdue's ArcGIS account, and we can make local agencies users to that, so where they can go out there then and use the free collector app that ArcGIS has and help collect data on their roads. And then data warehousing, all this information brings in data and having a place to store it. So our state legislators here in Indiana gave us some extra money, dedicated some money to build a data management system, and there's money set aside every year to help maintain it with our asset management program and data management system. Wisconsin has a similar program, Whistler. Utah had TAMS. Tennessee, as Airton will tell you, has a traffic signal database. North Dakota has the data management system that they created a few years ago. And then some future activities that are planned. We here in Indiana are rebranded our County Bridge Conference to be a local transportation asset management conference. I know the Michigan Transportation Asset Management Council has a similar conference in the fall. Nevada, so that they're planning on doing an asset management summit in September as well. So there's more of these centers starting to embrace and take on some conferences with an emphasis on asset management. We're planning on doing more hands-on pavement and bridge preservation training. Hoping, possibly looking into getting a falling weight deflectometer to help in that pavement management decision process. And we're looking at looking at what kind of imagery can be used to assess pavement distresses using iPhones instead of having these very expensive vehicles to go out there to scan your roads. What kind of data can we get with some simple tools on our smartphones and so forth. And also, I'll just end on this and throw this out there to our national LTAP group. Maybe we have, if asset management training is something that is something that a lot of us, according to the surveys, are doing. A lot of people are looking to maybe to do more of it. Maybe another working group in our national LTAP to help facilitate these conversations and express what kind of tools and resources and training that's already been developed out there. And then I know usually at our annual conference, there's a pre-conference workshop for safety. Just another idea that we had was maybe there's another pre-conference workshop going on simultaneously with the safety and for asset management and preservation, just to help bring our community up to higher ground where we can provide this training and resources to our local agencies. So with that, I think that was my last slide. Yep. I will turn it over to Eriton.
Right. Let me get started in my presentation here. All right, so can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right, so my name is Ayrton Coles. I'm with the LTAP Center here in Tennessee, and I know we're running a little beyond our agenda for today, a lot of time, but I promise I'm not gonna extend this for too long. I'm just going to go over some of the things that we have done to get started, the three LTAP centers that presented today, and some tips for you guys to get started as well. So in Tennessee, what we did, like Matt mentioned before, we have our Traffic Signal Academy here in Knoxville. And with that training related, it's a week-long set of classes that we do training on traffic signals. And one of the years that we have in the past, we have some folks from Pennsylvania DOT that showed up to our training. And during one of the breaks, I was talking to them with some of their initiatives, and one of the things they pointed to me was their SAMS, their Traffic Signal Asset Management System. And I thought that was very interesting and a needed thing that we also had to have here in Tennessee, especially because I'm into traffic signals. So I started looking for opportunities to fund a SAMS program here in Tennessee. And what I ended up doing is talking to Matt, our director here, and also trying some things with our Tennessee DOT. Okay. In the meantime, what I would like you guys to know is that similar to some other agencies in the country, TDOT is not responsible for the maintenance and operations of signals in Tennessee. Now, in the last 2 years, what TDOT has done is created a traffic signal users group, or what we call our TSUG group. And we're looking into ways of, since TDOT is not helping monetarily with maintenance and operations of signals, how can we help local agencies, especially the smaller agencies, with traffic signal training and other things that they can benefit from the traffic signal users group. So the first thing we did was a survey, and pretty soon we found out that that survey pointed to many agencies having little to no knowledge of their infrastructure. We have some agencies, we asked how many signals they have. They said, well, I think we have 15, but we may have 20 or 25. We really don't know. So especially those smaller agencies, they didn't have a good handle on how many signals and where those signals were located. The next question was about maintenance documentation. I'm a big proponent on not using our agency's money to cover any lawsuits. So regarding signals, so we're trying to help these local agencies document anything they do related to maintenance and find an easier way for them to do it. Okay, so we also noticed with that survey that there were deficiencies, that some of these agencies were not documenting their maintenance work. Now, all of this that we're doing with the traffic signal users group, in the back of my mind, I was trying to find an opportunity to bring that SAMS program in, trying to find a way to show TDOT on how having a signal asset management would help not only the state agency, but also the local agencies. The impact on planning, the budgeting, the safety of operations. Yes, here in Tennessee, we are just in the inventory. So if you remember Pat's, he had like 6 or 7 asset managements from FHWA topics. We're in the first one. We're just getting started on the inventory part of it. But all of this actually led last year to TDOT implementing a very small pot of money, $250,000, looking into helping some of these agencies. And that came from knowing some of these agencies' deficiencies. Okay, so it's called the Traffic Signal Modernization Program. And they were very surprised when they actually had $30 million in proposals, in requests for that $250,000 pot. So again, in the back of my mind, I say, here's an opportunity for us to learn exactly what's out there and provide information with this asset management and involve LTAP in the program. Now I have that topic there with CAV technology discussion. So again, with that frame of mind that I'm trying to find an opening, trying to look for gaps, trying to look for opportunities, I was hearing all these conferences about TDOT and not only here in Tennessee, but all our agencies around the country looking at the CAV technology, connected and autonomous vehicles. And at the same time, I have on the other side of my mind thinking, well, we don't know yet exactly, some of these agencies know where their signals are. And we're already thinking way up here on this new connected and autonomous vehicle technology. So again, trying to find for an opportunity to bring that asset management up to the front stage and talk to TDOT. CAV technology is great. We need to push the boundaries, but we also need to bring the bottom up with it. Okay, so I'm saying, do we know if our detectors are working related to signals? Do we know if where our traffic signalized intersections are? So all of those asset management things related to the inventory, I was trying to think about. Another one here, freeway traffic detour to arterials coordination. Some of our local agencies sometimes have I-40 or some of the other highways crossing some of their jurisdictions. They have detours, and those detours actually go inside their arterials on their roadways. And now if this city, this agency, this county don't have a good handling of, especially those that don't have traffic signal central systems, if they don't have a good handling on what is the timing plan, how can I change this, and they have to scramble to look for all of this stuff, that takes time, okay? And again, time is money. Time is especially safety for these folks that are diverting, maybe detouring into some of these arterials. So we're thinking of this, our asset management here for traffic signals as a timing plan repository as well. So all of this ultimately lead to an understanding of the importance of traffic signal asset management here in Tennessee, okay? So again, it all came back from the question, how many signalized intersections do we have here in Tennessee? We don't exactly know. We have a good handle of the state routes, but on the local routes, on the smaller agencies, we don't know. We guess that we have around 6,000 intersections, but again, that number for right now is just confirmed up to about 4,000, 4,500. So that's, again, we're learning, right? All we know is that we have a bunch of money in assets, right? Plus or minus $1 billion just in traffic signal assets here in Tennessee. So here's two screenshots from our system. It was in-house developed. Again, today's presentation is not about the software, but it's just that it's not that hard to do some of these things. We have somebody in-house that developed the database, and we are continuing to input some of this data. On the right side, you can see, of course, the mapping and information about controllers and all those good things about the asset management. We're focusing on smaller agencies. Now, I'm not going to be able to, of course, tell the story as well as Tim or Pat would about their agencies, but here's just a timeline, a very quick timeline of their own stories. Okay, let me go back here to my slide. So how did Michigan got started? So Tim already mentioned in 1990 he was asked if he could create a spread, if the LTAP Center would create a spreadsheet to manage pavement inventory and rating. As I'm going through this, think about as a simple question like that is going to lead to a very big program at the end of this timeline. Okay, you're going to see how this is going to develop into a big thing. Most of you know Michigan's story on the asset management, but just those of you that are not too familiar, just think about what has happened there. So since 1990, there was this question that, hey, can you create this management pavement inventory and rating for our roads? And with that, there was a start on teaching PASER. And I know we have heard a lot about PASER. Those of you that don't know what that is, it's pavement surface evaluation and rating. So those, again, Michigan started teaching some classes for rating and distress identification. 1992, the spreadsheet turned into software for asset management, and it was called RoadSoft. Just for you to have an idea, the project development and installation and all of those needed for that software, RoadSoft, that program was twice the size of an LTAP center, okay? So just for you to have an idea of the amount of effort in that. 2000, the state legislature demanded a unified way of assessing needs for funding roads, specifically on the need for more money, how these agencies will decide. 2000, completed a statewide pilot on asset management. 2002, state legislation created the TAMC, or the Transportation Asset Management Council, and mandated statewide collection of data. You can see now how this is evolving. In 2004, that software that was developed back then is now mandated by the state for the wide collection system, as the wide collection system. In 2009, the LTAP Center started doing research to support TAMC and significantly increase training. As I was talking to Tim yesterday, he was saying that maybe some of the things he did was looking at crash data to maybe estimate some of the number of signalized intersections in the state. And right now, he's saying that they are close to 7% plus or minus on the actual number of signalized intersections. 2014, they created unpaved road rating system to meet the needs of that council, the Asset Management Council. So now they are not only going from pavement roads to unpaved roads. That led in 2017 to the culvert pilot initiated by the governor. 2018, state legislation to mandate asset management for all infrastructure. And you can see there in 2018, Tim, the LTAP director, appointed to governor's board. So again, that's the thing that I was mentioning to you before. A simple question back there in 1990 led to our LTAP director being appointed to the governor's board. And that's a big thing for us, okay, for all the LTAP centers. 2018 regional all asset coordinated asset study, and all that has to do is with that management for all, asset management for all infrastructure, looking at water, sewer, roads, even internet fiber infrastructure out there, okay? To the right, I have some quick screenshots of that Michigan Transportation Asset Management Council. So they work on interactive maps, road and bridge conditions, dashboards, investment reporting tools, some of the things Tim already alluded on his presentation. And one of the things that stuck to my mind, and I always have praised and preached this too, is stay technical, right? All this technical support was to help political decisions. All right, so this is a little bit of the story on Michigan, and of course, Tim can tell you and maybe answer some of the specific questions you have. Let me go to Indiana's story, where Pat came in, and again, he mentioned several of these things, but again, in a timeline, just let me show you some of the things that happened there. We initiated, and I remember Rich Namankos telling us when we were planning for this session that just attending a panel on discussion on asset management actually triggered his and inspired him to start doing something, to start doing training on asset management on his state in Indiana. And also that same thing that helped him back there is what triggered this presentation right here. Okay, so here Matt, Kate, and Rich put together, we're putting together ideas for the presentation today. And one of the things that came about this was that Rich back there, that panel discussion on asset management, say, hey, maybe we can inspire some people today to do the same thing. So from 2011 to 2014, PASER and pavement asset management workshops were added to their training. In 2015, the state representative pitches new funding for locals, and to get that funding, of course, it required some asset management plans. That's one of the things that I didn't mention here in Tennessee. You remember that small part of money, the $250,000. For you to apply for that, you have to actually provide the state of Tennessee with your signals, with your inventory. And that inventory will be coming back to us at LTAP, and we will put that in the database. So these are ways of you to get these folks involved in asset management. Again, 2015, TAM committee was created to determine some of the requirements. Now, in 2016, the state legislation in Indiana creates this new matching grant fund, $100 million, with some requirements, of course, for the Transportation Asset Management Program. State legislation grants LTAP money to create the management system that Pat actually mentioned a few slides ago, and they are housing now the data, they're creating the reports, they're providing training on all of that. Indiana also attended Michigan PASER training and then started offering workshops, of course, in Indiana, gathered data from the first round program and created grant program and created a local needs report. They also created an Indiana asset management manual And getting towards the end here, 2017, like Pat mentioned, they rebranded one of their Rhodes Scholar classes for including asset management on their program. The state legislature, again, creates an annual funding source for the maintenance of that data management system. And in 2006, based largely on that report that was created a few years ago, the state increased the matching grant program to $200 million per year. Okay, so in 2018, the state again made requirements for main highway funding source, using some of that funds go towards construction, reconstruction, and preservation. LTAP was involved on the definition of preservation on the Indiana code. So you can see what Pat was mentioning before, how our centers can get involved with this larger efforts of asset management here. And in 2019, Indiana's story here, utilize and create tools and resources for local agencies using the GIS data collection, spreadsheet network analysis tools, and so on. Okay, so how can your center get started? So based on what we had just seen, some of the things that you can do is explore what's out there. Take a look at what your DOT is doing regarding asset management. See if you have a door that maybe is ready to be opened for you to help. Where are the gaps? Similar to what I was trying to do. I was looking for an opportunity to show TDOT that asset management regarding traffic signals is important. Of course, they know that for pavement, it's already something that is happening here in Tennessee, but they didn't have that view for the traffic signals. So we're trying to help not only TDOT, but also local agencies. Are there initiatives that you can jump onto? Maybe start teaching. Just start teaching some asset management classes, some pavement preventive maintenance training. Do some traffic signal preventive class. All those things will start leading to an understanding of the basics and creates a need for the next step. What's the next step? Data collection. Now some of these agencies will say, well, I like this, but I cannot collect the data. Here's where your LTAP can maybe help these local agencies. Adopt or create a system for data collection, just like we did here in Tennessee, just like Tim and Pat did in their locations. This is the prime tool that makes the rest possible. Start with simple, free, or maybe even a paper tool, right? Teach some classes now on how to use those tools. Condition assessment training like the PASER. Try to get a larger initiative, again, started with your DOT or your legislature, okay? Another thing that I would like to tell before I go to my last slide here, when I started asking these agencies here in Tennessee for the traffic signal data, that really opened a door not only for asset management, but for knowing more of these people. I have been working for about 5 or 6 years here at LTAP Center, and I didn't know some of these folks. So that gave me an opportunity to reach out and get engaged with them, okay? So some practical steps that we would like you to take away from this presentation today. Reach out to a center in your area doing asset management. One of the three of us that are already maybe on the baby steps like we are here in Tennessee, or somewhat more advanced like Michigan and Purdue University with Indiana. Bring them to speak at one of your conferences. Attend their training. Learn how to teach classes that you maybe want to adopt on your center. And adapt materials from, of course, your peer centers and launch training efforts. Give it a try. Again, we're finding out that asset management is a big thing regarding traffic signals here in Tennessee as well. Okay, so with that, I would like to give it back to Matt, I think, and we're probably going to look at some questions.
Well, actually, we have run long, and I'm getting the signal that we need to turn things over to Keith to wrap the conference up for the day. And so anybody who has submitted a question, we will try to put it to our panel and get some answers out to you by email as quickly as possible. So Victoria, I've seen the one from Steve Strength. Don't know if we have anything else, but if you'll share those with us, we'll do our best to provide some answers for everybody. So.
All right, thanks, Matt. Yeah, thanks everyone for sticking around. We're 25 minutes over. I'm going to communicate with the session people tomorrow that, again, they're going to need to stick to their hour. But I really appreciate the people that have stuck around, sticking around. Please do not forget to fill out your evaluation. We need those answers on those. We got a really good bunch of really good sessions tomorrow, including our plenary on service and authentic leadership, more micro learnings and state sharings, and a couple more sessions, and then a bonus session at the end after a bit of a break. And we'll try to work to stay more on time tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central, and we'll just call it a day. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.